for South Africa, in terms of the Auditor General, and in terms of what has happened here, the Auditor General of South Africa been certified as in the 2025 top employer by the Top Employers Institute. That puts that organization amongst the leading 2,400 in the world. So lots to connect with. Now, what do you want to talk about? Feel free to engage right away. 086 000 2032. You can then WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. And if you can certainly post on social media. Just tweet SAFM Radio, tag us, and then tag me on that X platform, Ashraf Garda. Do use the hashtag The National Pulse. And when we're talking to the guests, you can, add your thoughts. I'll be able to pick up a trend of that all throughout the show. Now, let's get then to the expropriation bill issue. We touched on it yesterday. We will talk about it later on. In fact, we'll chat to different takes on that issue that I can tell you up front. The Deputy Minister of Public Works, Sihle Zikalala, coming up after 4 o'clock. Don't miss that. And we get an EFF response on the same issue. But let's talk about this. So there's clearly support on the bill, or now the act from the African National Congress, the party with if not the majority party, the party with the most votes in that last election. But and there's been support from other similar ones. I'm thinking about the EFF, Rising Mzansi, but there's also been, EFF support, but there's been that sort of thing, right? So we'll talk to them. But let's then talk about, there's also been opposition to it, and some of them opposing it for very, very different reasons. So we thought, let's get an explainer in terms of what actually happened behind the scenes, what was then played out, and the rationale behind then adopting the expropriation bill. So with me is Professor Ruth Hall, who's a former advisor of President Ramaphosa's advisory panel on land reform. And she holds the DSI NRF South African Research Chair in Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies. I think that's just a very important portfolio, I would think, in many ways. Prof. Hall, thank you for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. Hello to everyone.
Hello indeed. So, first of all, are you surprised by the response from different parties and how polarized those responses are?
Not in the least. In fact, it's entirely predictable. Are you still there? Sorry, there was a call. It's so predictable. In fact, we're just hearing the same things being said that were rehashed ever since the first expropriation bill was tabled in 2008, then in 2013, and 2015, and 2018, and in 2020. So we've heard all of this before. And, the bill that has been passed now has been making its way through the National Assembly, through public hearings, through the National Council of Provinces ever since 2020. These same political parties have raised the same concerns. The State Law Advisor has certified the bill. It has gone through all of these processes. And looking back on these processes, it's not surprising that a lot of people oppose this bill, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
For many people, it's going too far. For many people, it's not enough.
Well, and that's exactly the point, isn't it? So I thought, let's talk to you about it. I mean, help us understand, we're calling it the bill now. Help us understand the bill in terms of what does it actually say? And then we'll look at the practicalities of it all.
Okay. Well, I can tell you what it says, but I think that the most important thing, firstly, is to understand that an expropriation is a law-bound process, which is quite a standard process that governments around the world do. The South African government, particularly the Department of Public Works, regularly expropriates. It's not considered controversial. But expropriation is different from confiscation. Confiscation is not a law-bound process, and typically confiscation doesn't involve a due legal process or compensation. So an expropriation is a legally prescribed process, and this law actually sets out 7 steps that either the Minister of Public Works or any expropriating authority must undertake in order to compulsorily acquire a piece of property. So this involves, for instance, serving a notice on the owner, having to provide the reason, showing that they've tried to negotiate, showing that there was an offer to purchase. The owner has 30 days to object and to provide any further information. The state then has to respond. Other parties can come in. The municipality can be consulted. There must be a reasonable time where it's in the government gazette. Anyone can accept or reject. But ultimately, what it means is that in the situation where we have landless people who have claimed back land and a current owner who owns that land, this means that the state now has a deadlock breaking mechanism. And this is entirely consistent with Section 25 of the Constitution, the Property Clause, which says that there is a mandate to the state to bring about transformation, to deal with land inequality, to deal with dispossession of the past, and to bring about greater justice. So when there are opposing and competing interests in society, the state can expropriate. So that is broadly what the bill says. What's striking, of course, for many people is it's taken 30 years in which we've had a constitution that said the state can do this, in which we have not had an expropriation law that operationalizes that. It's taken us 30 years to actually get back to the point where we were at in 1996.
So let me say about that one about the 30 years part. I mean, it also puzzled me the other day, because I think this new act now replaces a previous act, I think, which exists from 1975, if I'm not mistaken, right? And it got me thinking, if we transformed so radically in the country in 1994 to the point where banned political parties were part of the system, people who were complete anathema to the state were now allowed to participate in politics for the very first time. We were that radical, right? Why was this issue then not escalated?
Well, that's a broader question. Land is so important in South Africa, but it's often more important to political parties as political ammunition than it is in terms of an actual ideological commitment. So in my view, while there is clearly a serious land issues in this country, you drive through the cities, through the countryside, you see the spatial inequality. You see the ways in which poverty and marginalization get reinforced and perpetuated through land inequality. And yet politically, the ruling party has not prioritized redistributing land, even though it had the constitutional mandate to do so. And I think that the reason why we have the Expropriation Act now is that in the period from 2018 onwards, when the EFF in Parliament pushed for a constitutional amendment, other groups pushed for a constitutional amendment, and the DA, property owner lobbies and banks said, but hold on, we don't need to change the constitution. It already provides for this. So in a way, the agreement that we keep the constitution as it is, but we finally have this expropriation law was, in a sense, a compromise position. Nonetheless, what I would say is it's necessary, but it is by no means a guarantee that the state will use these powers, that it will use these powers responsibly in a way that is necessary. And of course, there are those who think, well, when government acquires property, who is it going to give it to? Is it going to be through a fair process? So a crucial thing is how this will be adjudicated.
Okay. And can we say, emphatically that this particular bill that's been passed now, right, is primarily to speed up a transformation regarding land, and is very different, for example, to the state expropriating with compensation, I would think, regarding some of the homes that were affected by the laying of the tracks around the Gautrain, for example. In essence, it's expropriation, but it's very, very different. This one's very much transformation-based.
Yes, exactly. So up to now, we've had this 1975 Act that says the state can expropriate for public purposes like building public infrastructure, in which case the state becomes the owner of that infrastructure. Whereas this law says the state may expropriate from a private owner or entity to transfer to another private owner or entity. This is what clearly is a redistribution mandate. For instance, people who have a land claim, people who've been evicted, but there is available land that is not being used, it could be expropriated, or a portion of it could be expropriated to meet a land need. The other important difference is that the 1975 Act, I mean, it's amazing to think because, of course, the apartheid state dispossessed people without compensation all the time, but the actual technical law requires market-level compensation. And that is not what our Constitution says. So Chapter 5 of the new law, if anyone is interested in this, it's actually worth looking at it. Chapter 5 of this new act that was signed into law yesterday actually quotes the Constitution directly. It says that the amount of compensation must be just and equitable. You should take into account the current use of the property, how it was historically acquired. The market value is one criterion, but also past state subsidies, and also what's the purpose of the expropriation. And it then goes on, and this is probably the most contentious thing. Section 12.3 says there may be circumstances in which the state should not pay any compensation, right? And it gives only a few examples where, for instance, the land is held purely for speculative purposes and there is no land use. Secondly, where essentially it is the state has already given so much subsidy that it has already effectively paid for it, or where the owner has abandoned the land. So let's think about, for instance, all that private property that municipalities and metros cannot address because they're privately owned, like the inner city buildings in Hillbrow.
Yeah.
Or land in which there are informal settlements. The state should be expropriating those and incorporating them in plans to make our cities and our countryside more inclusive. So I actually think that this gives an important set of tools to the state, if only the state had a plan of how to use it.
Okay, well,
that's the next question.
And hopefully they should have that plan. I think that's very, very important. Let me just pick up very quickly before I let you go on the issue of, expropriation with compensation. At this point in time, in terms of my understanding yesterday, there's the Constitution, but what was agreed yesterday only talks about with compensation, right? And therefore, some parties are critical of that because they would prefer the no compensation route. Is that how you read it too?
Well, let's be clear, actually. When parties like the EFF talk about expropriation without compensation, what they're wanting is actually the vesting of all property as state property. So they're not wanting an individual piece of property to be expropriated and that particular owner not to be compensated, but rather the nationalization of property or the vesting of all property in the hands of the state. And that has not been politically on the cards under ANC rule or under the government of national unity. And that's why they're frustrated by this bill, because it is a one-by-one, case-by-case kind of process. And they can see that it's not a recipe for massive disruption in property relations. On the other hand, you have the DA, which, by the way, was in every single portfolio committee meeting around this for the past 8 years. So, they shouldn't be surprised. But they consistently have said, in fact, we shouldn't change the Constitution, we should just have an expropriation law. Now, of course, that we've got it, they're going to contest it. I think it's disingenuous, and I think it's a waste of our time to contest the law. Rather, we should be thinking about what are the circumstances in which the state could use these powers to actually break through some of the deadlocks and bring about more inclusion in our cities and countryside.
Well, we got 30 seconds. Perhaps you can answer this then. You gave the example of Hillbrow, which I think is a fabulous example of properties that have, I think the owners have just vacated it for whatever reasons that we know about, right? And maybe the state can intervene and really radically change that landscape ASAP, right? But that's one. Perhaps very quickly, if you can give us an example of how it would play out in practice between, say, unclaimed land, right, and then maybe territorial land in the countryside, and what some may perceive as, a house in suburban Cape Town or Johannesburg, for example. But you've got 30 seconds.
I think that a lot of people have been claiming land, and for nearly 30 years they're waiting for their claims to go through. They were unfairly dispossessed of land. They're entitled to it. They should get it back, and government should use this law to override private interests in the interests of historical justice, and it gives them that mandate. And I think that we should see some test cases coming up soon, hopefully to the new land court, and show that this can work, it can be a fair process, and it can bring about greater land justice.
I've done that in 30 seconds. I've counted. Prof. Ruth Hall, appreciate you giving of your time and enlightening us really on this process with us, explaining in terms of your understanding of the expropriation bill, Expropriation Act. Now, this is the National Pulse. What about you? What are you feeling about it?
Assurance, they understand my business. They are so good in terms of communication, which gives me confidence. It's a good decision that I've made to move to Assurance. I'm a winner. I want to be with the winners.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course, We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we should be finding out what's going on and there's huge issues of concern in the DRC. So we'll talk about that shortly. But let's get some of your thoughts around some of the biggest issues. I tell you what, let's just go back to the issue that was touched on yesterday and maybe even the previous day regarding the issue of the foreign nationals in particular. I mean, you could apply the same to others as well, even South Africans. But with the foreign nationals, that figure, 450, 470, 480, just round up to 500 rand a meal, and square that off. What does it take a person who's not in prison to spend time in terms of what does it cost that person for a daily meal or daily meals? I'll come back to that just now because we now do have Nixon Katemba with us. He's the African Affairs commentator who works for Channel Africa. Nixon, firstly, good to connect with you. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Now, we are talking to you because there are some developments in the DRC that is a huge cause for concern. And amongst that, I understand, is the M23 group, or the rebel group M23, making progress, closing in on the town of Goma, which is, I think, is in the East DRC region, very close, I would think, then, to Rwanda too, right? But perhaps you can tell us more about it. Set the scene for us. What is actually happens?
Yes, this is after M23 attacked early yesterday the town of Sake, where SAMI DRC is based. This is the SADC mission, and the SADC mission had to repass the rebel in assisting with the Congolese National Army together with the UN forces to repulse the rebels' attack on the city of Sake. However, the rebel had opened multiple fronts, including coming from the Lake Kivu, trying to overpower the government forces, including the SADC forces. This caused general panic, but I'm closely monitoring the situation. Is that the situation is slightly under control, although there are general sense of fear around Goma. And this comes after, of course, the Rwandan Army, Rwanda Defense Forces generals met with the M23 leadership recently to discuss on the way to take an assault on Goma, and you would have followed the utterances that were made by President Paul Kagame about the Congolese leadership having been denying that the president was not elected and therefore cannot claim legitimacy. And these are issues that have formed the conflict on how this conflict is unfolding in the Congo.
Now, the implications of this, I mean, I understand often we talk about the warring factions, right? But we tend to neglect how that plays out in terms of the impact that it has on the ordinary people. What's been the fallout of that?
Well, Goma is a city of over than 1 million people, and imagine several displaced people have run into Goma. So the humanitarian implications are dire. Two, it could suck in regional armies such as Burundi, Tanzania, and South Africa, because South Africa is a part of SADC missions there. And you would imagine when M23 attack Goma, which means that they put in direct confrontation the SADC forces. However, I'm told that the SADC forces led by South Africa are really defending the city through heavy artillery, and they are doing a good job in terms of protecting the civilians. When it comes to the regional dynamics, of course, Rwanda sees it at this place, this particular region is its own spheres of influence, and I don't know whether it's going to relent in supporting the M23. And you do know that Goma is located at a very vulnerable position when it comes to Rwanda, because just across the road, across the border, is found the 3rd Division, the headquarters of the Rwandan Defense Forces, which can easily launch any attack or when it comes to, for example, the Goma airport. And you recall that the UN outlined that Rwanda is jamming navigation signals from and interfering with the airport navigation system at the Goma airport. So these are all the implications that might come out. We don't know what is going on at the moment and how Rwanda is executing these plans in terms of assisting the M23. And you know the sophistication under which the M23 is coming with, it cannot be found in a rebel group, but rather in a regular army, such as your jamming equipment and so on.
Okay. Now, see, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, has called on the M23 to immediately cease its offensive, effectively calling on the ceasefire agreement of invoking that of the 31st of July 2024, right? I suppose, that's not unusual, but how telling is that? I'm saying that in the context of his other calls for ceasefires, be it Russia, Ukraine, and be it Israel, Palestine, which, inevitably seems to fall on deaf ears unless the parties themselves want to do something about it. Meaning, how much clout does the UN boss have?
We see the UN trying to gain credibility in terms of issuing this statement, but at the same time also losing credibility in some of the areas in the conflict that you have outlined there. But that is not the essence of our discussions. The point here for the particular M23 is that the UN intervened in 2013, that after South Africa and Tanzania as well as Malawi led an assault on the M23 in assistance with the Congolese forces. Whether they are going to do the same now, I think this is what the SADC Commission have to carry out at the moment. For the UN, it's just have to play a support role. Of course, we know that they have been there for a number of years. Whether the impact is felt by the local population, that is entirely another different matter. So it will dictate on how UN Secretary General's call is felt on the ground in terms of cessation of hostility, or even on the M23 and the Rwandan government stopping their assault on Goma.
And just lastly, as we get to news time, just take us back very quickly to reflect on the essence of the differences. What are they actually fighting for?
No, they claim they are fighting for Tutsi-led community in Eastern Congo, but you recall that Eastern Congo is an amalgamation of cultures. Mainly those who are in the Congo, in a North Kivu territory, part of North Kivu territory, 40% of those people speak Kinyarwanda, and the majority of them are Hutu, by the way. So you have the nexus between the conflict, ethnic conflict in Rwanda, spilling over in Eastern DRC, and Kagame using that as a right to justify his invasion of the DRC and to siphon its mineral resources, as the UN report has outlined.
Okay, all very complicated. Let's hope there's some light at the end of that tunnel. Nixon Katembo, the African Affairs commentator, talking about the issues around the DRC and the problems there. Let's get to the news headlines now. It's just gone 30 years on Della.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis says he has requested an urgent briefing from the police following a raid at the offices of two mayoral committee members. The National Union of Mine Workers has called for the Minerals Council to halt the implementation of retrenchments in the sector, and the Matthews Posa College in Mpumalanga is accused of failing to pay teachers and other staff their salaries. The private secondary school is further accused of unfairly dismissing some of the complaining teachers. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N1 southbound in Fourways is queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash after Geldenhuys Interchange. The N1 northbound has a crash on the link to the N12 east at Diepkloof Interchange. And Beyers-Naudé Drive westbound in Rizzydale, slow moving at Mimosa Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg has a stationary truck before Market Road. The N3 westbound, a stationary vehicle after Ashburton. All lanes are open. Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place, and Mgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound, slow moving approaching Okavango Road. The M5 northbound is slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. Bakengracht Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway, and Strand Street outbound is slow moving towards High Level Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Chumi, you're wearing is it an Italian
It's
top?
Italian top.
Okay, so that's one thing. It's a football Italian, not rugby, right? Just
No,
football.
not
Okay.
rugby.
Are we talking Italy?
We're talking rugby, actually.
Okay, all right.
And
Go
we're
ahead.
talking all things the Springbok Sevens, who beat Australia 10-7 in their second game to end day one with 2 out of 2 in the Perth Sevens tournament. Donovan and David Brits scored a try each to help South Africa to go top of Group A. So South Africa now are on 6 points, 2 ahead of USA and Argentina. Meanwhile, the Sharks will resume their Vodacom URC campaign in the Welsh capital this weekend. Vincent Chituka returns to action as captain of a reject Sharks side that includes 2-time world champions Vincent Koch and Makazola Mapimpi, as well as Jordan and Jaden Hendrickse. Now, the 5th place Sharks are looking to bounce back to winning ways before taking a 2-week break, during which Plumtree expects to receive some good news on the injury front. Now, moving on to tennis, Novak Djokovic says that he will continue aiming to add to his record of 24 titles. This is despite injuries disturbing his charge. The 35-year-old was forced to retire from his Australian Open semi-final against Alexander Zverev due to a muscle injury. Now, this is his second injury setback at the Grand Slam in a year, having pulled out of the French Open with a knee injury before his quarterfinal with Casper Ruud.
I mean... How much of a worry is it? I don't know. It's not like I'm worrying, approaching every Grand Slam now, you know, whether I'm going to get injured or not. But statistics are against me in a way in the last couple of years. So it is true that, you know, getting injured quite a bit last few years. I don't know what... exactly is the reason for that, you know. Maybe several different factors, but I'll keep going, you know. I'll keep striving to win more slams, and as long as I feel that I want to put up with all of this, I'll be around.
Well, he was actually booed off the court by some spectators. He retired after losing the first set 7-6 to put Zverev in the final for the first time. I guess some fans weren't happy with the fact that they didn't get their money's worth, but Zverev was quick to come to his defense.
I want to say is, please, guys, don't boo a player when he goes out with injury. He is... I know that everybody paid for tickets and everybody wants to see hopefully a great 5-set match and everything, but you got to understand, Novak Djokovic is somebody that has given this sport for the past 20 years absolutely everything of his life. And He has won this turn with an abdominal tear. He has won this turn with a hamstring tear. If he cannot continue a tennis match, it really means that he cannot continue a tennis match. So please be respectful and really show some love for Novak as well.
Well, wishing Djokovic a speedy recovery. It's quite unfortunate for him that he's out, and I never get it when fans boo athletes. For me, just personally, I don't get it. But worse if the player is injured, as if he did it on purpose.
So in practical terms, they're booing him because he ruined their match, right?
That's what they feel.
Yeah. And they paid good money, and I gather there's no refund for that,
of course,
right? Okay, so that's the practical part.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, why are they there? They're there because they are seeing a gladiator in action, and the gladiator is injured, and that's the real world. It shows you that when they superhuman and they have 5 setters and they have these incredible games, that ultimately they are human beings, and it has a toll on their body.
It does.
Which tells me that there's a disconnect between them, the supporter of the person, and them understanding that the person's a human being with feelings and obviously with a body that backs up.
Unfortunately, that's what we do. We glorify these athletes, the ones that we love. But he did say that he tried his best because he didn't try to go to practice or play after the Alcaraz match. He just decided to practice an hour before this particular one. But unfortunately for him.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think his opponent was very, very magnanimous in calling to attention the spectators, say, come on, guys, this is Novak Djokovic. How can you boo him? So I think well done to him. Maybe you'll support him for the finals now. I know you're a Djokovic fan. What are you going to do Sunday morning?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on Zverev's side. I'm actually going to support Zverev. Even Djokovic himself, he says he's going to push for Zverev. Hopefully he does well against Jannik Sinner, because he will defend his title against Zverev after he beat Ben Shelton 7-6, 6-2 and 6-2 to reach his 3rd major final. Well, with that said, it is a wrap from my side for now.
Listen, before that, ask me who's our guest at 5 o'clock. Do you know?
I have an idea.
Oh, tell us who it is then, because you have an idea.
Themba Bavuma.
You're very clever. Good. Themba Bavuma is our guest. Fireside Chat, 5 to 6 p.m.
Looking forward to it.
More sports later on.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy 1 rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy 1 rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Abafana Best 10 are pumped up to get to the round of 16, but the Chili Boys believe they will display a happy walk after the final whistle. This is the Nedbank Cup round of 32. Golden Arrows FC versus Chippa United FC on Saturday, 25 January at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, you know, besides the hard political issues and current affairs issues that we talk about, we try and, if we can, pay as much attention to winners as well. And I know Themba Bavuma is a winner, so we'll talk to him after 5 o'clock. But for now, what about the Auditor General of South Africa? Well, they're winners in many ways as well. In fact, they've been certified as a 2025 top employer by the Top Employers Institute, and that means some significant things. We're going to find out what that really means with Vunani Chauke, who's the Deputy Auditor General. Vunani, I appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Hi, afternoon, Ashraf, and afternoon to your listeners. How are you doing?
I'm very good indeed, and for a change, we do not speak to you about sharing how you've held others to account in terms of expenditure, but it's very much just a reflection on the office of the Auditor General, isn't it? I mean, well done to the entire office.
Yes, it's good news to come talk to you today, not about the outcome of the audit, but to talk about the outcome of us having gone through this process to be certified as a top employer. And we're glad the fact that we are playing in the public sector space to have been able to make this particular certification. It indicates that we are employing best HR practices. And given the time of the year, it came at the right time when we are fighting for the talent pool, especially with the graduates that we need to recruit, especially the people doing the CA profession, that there is a limited pool out there. And this gives us a very good edge in terms of being able to entice those who might have been considering the AGSA vis-a-vis the other audit firms out there. It will give them comfort that we are applying best HR practices. We are looking after our own employees.
So, what does this mean when you talk about 2025, a top employer by the Top Employers Institute, and I understand this is part of a grouping of 2,400 organizations. Explain, what does that really mean?
So what it means is that we subjected ourselves to be for the top employer to come and assess our HR practices. So similar to when you've got like an ISO 900 certification to show that your processes comply with certain standards. In this case, they look into our HR practices to say, how do we look after our staff, their staff well-being, their mental health, and everything that we do around our HR people. For us, Ashraf, the thing is, as an audit practice, the most precious asset that we've got in our balance sheet is our people. And we have really done a lot of work for us to ensure that we do that. However, in the past, we have never subjected ourselves to this certification process. So what they do, they come and rip your staff apart, look into your processes, look into how you do things, and only when you meet the criteria, you then get certified. What is critical for us is this is the first year that we have subjected ourselves to this process. In most cases, people get to be told that you must work on certain things, and only then they get to be certified. In our case, it was our first time that we said, let's get someone external, whether we are, if there is an area that we need to work on. Good enough. There is some room to improve in some areas, but we are good enough to be certified, which is great for us being a public sector.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I also understand that, just to go back, it's not like you've done nothing as the Auditor General's office. You've been the external auditor of the United Nations from 2023, and then, of course, did some work or does work for the World Bank as well. So, I mean, there's been a track record already that somehow when we talk about, when we talk about celebrities in music and we gloat about them, we tend to not pay the same tribute to first world-class institutions, best in class, like the Auditor General's office, right?
Definitely, Ashraf. I mean, normally people ask us and say, for those of us who previously worked in the private sector, say, how do you adjust to the public sector? And what we normally say is, the AGSA audit the public sector, but we don't treat ourselves like the typical public sector. We try to benchmark ourselves with the best globally. So even when we go and audit the UN, we are auditing them based on the best global audit things that needs to be done out there. And we try to do this across the board. And we do hope that this kind of accolade will encourage other entities in the public sector to be able to see that it is possible to play in a different league. And in the past, we have been recognized, and in most cases, it will be best employer in the public sector and stuff like that. But this time around, we are glad that this is a global certification that we are playing with other 2,400 entities globally. So it does tell us that the things that we are doing, we are looking after our people, our most precious asset, and we are able to do everything that we do. Our commitment, as Tsakani Maluleka, the Auditor General, says, in line with culture shift, is that we do need to change the culture in the public sector to ensure that we aim for doing the right things. We care for each other in line with our values. And I do hope that this will encourage other entities, especially those that are in a good space to be able to emulate what we are doing in our work, when we audit our entities, we'll be able to also share the best practices, not just to comply with the law, but go with global best practice.
Now, this acknowledgement, this global acknowledgement, what does it mean for the office in terms of stature and going forward?
So it means a lot for us. I was with our chief people officer, and we were just looking into that sometimes, given the space that we play in, we will recruit a lot of trainees, and let's focus on that. So we are very good in training people, but we normally struggle with graduates. So when people are in universities, and we have to get people who have got honors to come and join us, when people think about us and think about the other big four firms and other firms in South Africa, we are not always top of mind. And what happens is people normally associate us with the public sector. They normally think that when they join us, they'll be subjecting themselves to a public sector environment. So this tells them that we are applying global best practice, and when they come to us, they're going to get the same opportunity that they will get in other places. We have been at pain to say that if you look into our track record, in the past 3 years, Ashraf, we have produced over 700 CAs. And that tells you that we've got the right processes to give people the best chance of qualifying as chartered accountants, be auditors. Even though they are practicing in the public sector, we give them a good range of experience. So I'm glad that this came at the right time when people are making final decisions in terms of which firm are they going to join on the 1st of Feb, which is when we do our first year intake. And I do hope that the number of people that have committed to join us, they will not change their mind. And those who are not sure whether they can join the AG to come and do their training, this will entice them to come and join us. This, Ashraf, it will go a long way for us to be able to have the best talent coming to train with us. And ultimately, these people, we can't keep them within AGSA. When we have trained them, we'll be able to give them to other public sector entities where they will have trained them. Just imagine what it will do to the country. We will be able to expose people who are professionals, people who are chartered accountants, to be deployed in the public sector. This will change the culture. This will go a long way in terms of expanding the talent pool in the country.
Well, I think that's all very, very important. And, I often talk about linking your personal purpose for the country with your purpose nationally. That means linking, you have your personal purpose and the collective, which is the national purpose. Do you see, therefore, besides the literal work of the Auditor General's office in terms of the actual work that you do and holding a whole lot of other institutions to account, do you find that perhaps this year, not only does it create a good culture within your office, right, but it does have a spin-off of excellence with every touch point that the Auditor General's office connects with?
I do think that is correct, Ashraf, that there are definitely spin-off in us being able to say that that if we excel in all we do that. And it is our motto and it is our way of work within AGSA that we do our work in such a way that there is no question on the work that we do. Obviously, the work that we do is very important. If there's ever a question on the quality of our audit, that will change the integrity of the audit process. So we make sure that in doing our work, we do it to the fullest. When Gisakana Maluleke adopted a culture shift 2030 strategy, the whole point was to say, what do we do to change the culture that is perceived in the public sector? And one of the fundamental issues that is there is really about the skill gap in the public sector, where people are not keen to go and work for the public sector. But imagine this. If you train someone in the public sector and they get to understand the environment and they get to know what is real and what is myth, and they are willing to go and apply their skills after being trained at the office hours where they get the best training, and you make those people to be the CFOs and the financial managers of our entities, you will definitely change the culture. And those people, if they go there with an ethos of excelling in all they do, having the right ethical posture, it will go a long way to change the culture.
Well, I'll tell you what, you put out a challenge to all of them, and I hope they would grab that challenge. But well done, Vunani Chauke, the Deputy Auditor General, to yourself and to the Auditor General and the entire team, the Office of the Auditor General, for being certified as a 2025 top employer by the Top Employers Institute. And that puts your office amongst that group of 2,400 organizations globally who are making a difference. Now, that's what we want, isn't it? Winners all the way, and the country wins when they win. This is the National Pulse.
What you're about to hear is not a call from Standard Bank.
Hello, Ma. You just made a payment of 2,000 Rand to a store in Guatemala. Yeah, if not, please give me the OTP we've just sent to you and we'll stop this transaction.
Don't fall for it. Standard Bank will never ask you for your one-time PIN over the phone. If you suspect fraud, hang up immediately. Visit our help center on the banking app to learn more or call our fraud line on 0800 222 050. Another lesson to hashtag beat the scam. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Life-changing wins can happen when you play on the National Lottery. Just like the Lucky Powerball Plus winner who won over 33 million Rand on Tuesday. Play Powerball for an estimated 100 million Rand jackpot this Friday and you could be next. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
All right, certainly let's talk. I want to get a feel of what your feel for what is the National Pulse today, right? So there's a series of people commenting by a voice note. Let's hear it.
Good afternoon, Tata Ashraf Garda, your team, and the fellow South African FM listeners, SAFM. And Tata Ashraf, would you please make a follow-up on that story of that they advocate Mwako Ramatlhodi? I mean, I found the story to be very interesting that there was a group. I remember you spoke to one Khosi, I forgot his name, who disputed that they had appointed that they advocate Mwako Ramatlhodi as the first Bapedi Prime Minister. Would you please get both of them, Ntate Mwako Ramatlhodi, as well as the Khosi, and find out from them? I would like to hear their debate. You know, I think it's going to be quite interesting.
Good afternoon, Ashraf Gara and your hardworking team of producers behind you. My name is Mpepu Mpireni from Limpopo, Mkumbani village. Ashraf, a very shocking statistic of illegal foreigners in our country's prisons. 22,000 is a shocking statistic, Ashraf. How much money do they spend annually? Our country do not prioritize us as country's owners. Loyal citizens receive 370 Rand per month, foreigners making billions out of criminal activities. Now, illegal foreigners' kids are allowed to go to our schools. Who is benefiting? What is in our country? Foreigners are eating bread and butter next to us, whilst our children are eating salt. Wow. Very painful, Ashraf. Thank you so much. Mpepu Mpireni, Limpopo, Mkumbani village. Nda.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the SFM listeners. The government must be specific when they talk about land. Some of us are paying bonds, some people are renting. So they must tell us, is it of government interest for the economy or the public interest? Because it can end up in chaos. We'll end up looking like Zimbabwe. Brian Mapai, Proteagland. Thanks for the great show, Ashraf.
Thanks for that. Well, I'll tell you what, the issue of the foreigners or foreign nationals, it's been debated, and I think the issue of now what they're spending time, what it's costing them just in prison, just for food is, yeah, listen, I think I can hear what you're saying and many others to say, like, we need to address that issue, right? Got that. In terms of the other conversation we had regarding Mwako Ramatlhodi, he's the Prime Minister of the Bapedi tribe, and the person we chatted to was Khosi Setla Morago Tobejani, right, the chairman of the Marota Royal House, who disputes that Prime Minister's ship. So, okay, we spoke to him. Maybe I'll get Temba to say, let's get Ramatloli once again on and say, hold it, we spoke to you in November, I think it was, but we need to do another conversation. So thanks for that reminder on that issue. By the way, we will have another chatting to the Deputy Minister of Public Works around the issue of expropriation. I'm talking about Sihle Zikalala coming up very shortly. But in the meantime, let's get to, there's a couple of voice notes we're going to take. There's some more, in fact, there's a couple of callers we can take. Mike in Newlands, go for it.
Yeah, Ashraf, hi, good afternoon. Ashraf, I actually don't know where to start. Are we suggesting that the ANC, which currently has a president that's being investigated for hiding dollars in his couch, a vice president that's involved in a 1.3 Alexandra money scam we haven't figured out yet. We've got the Minister of Justice who's currently being investigated for corruption, and now our Minister in the Presidency is being investigated by the Hawks. Now, these are the people that are beginning to be given control over the distribution of any land anywhere in South Africa, and not only that, your motor car, my motor car, my antique collection, my motorbike collection, my garden plants, whatever I own, the ANC can now come and expropriate. And
Mike, you really think that's going to happen? I mean, seriously.
Yes, Ashraf.
Your motor car, really?
Yes, you see. Ashraf, here's my point, Ashraf. No, I don't think that's going to happen.
But you just said it's going to happen.
You see, Ashraf.
You said they can come there and take it from you.
So, okay, Ashraf, it's going to happen. Listen, Ashraf, maybe I'm going to annoy somebody on this phone call. They're going to say, that Mike from Newlands, I'm actually fed up with him. Guys, let's go around there and take his car. What am I going to be able to do about it? Let's go around there and take his cell phone, because now you can't.
Okay, but Mike, you're offside on this, and you know that. You said you're going to annoy someone. Yes, I can't speak on behalf of the rest, but you just have. But we can't give you the platform just to annoy someone. You make a point.
Ashraf, I'm not doing that. You asked me.
But you just said so. You just said so.
Can I make my point, Ashraf?
30 seconds,
Ashraf,
please. We need to wrap up.
Thank you. Ashraf, why? We need investment into this country. How on earth is it going to be when we have an investor that comes to South Africa with the highest unemployment in the world? If you are between the ages of 18 and 26, you haven't got a job now, you will never have a job in South Africa. And we're now going to go and put the AGOA agreement at risk and any new investor into the country. How on earth is it going to happen? And we're giving the ANC the power to do this. It is complete madness.
Right, Mike, you've made your point, and I still say, as I've said, thank you for that. I cannot see how you can equate what we're talking about, the expropriation bill or act, with someone coming to you and taking your car, your garden tools, as you have intimated, because that would be theft. That's got nothing to do with government in terms of expropriating what they see as your goods. I mean, really, I'm just putting it out there so you know. Okay, let me say this. I mean, in terms of what do you pick up and how do you? So Mike has personalized the expropriation bill or act, and that's how we all should do it, I suppose, good or bad. How do you personalize it? I mean, how do you see how do you see this happening and playing out in practical terms? I'm very keen to know how you feel about it. Not so much the ideological aspects, but the practical aspects of it all. Think about that. Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the top stories at 4, Hill Lewis reacts to the raid at the offices of 2 MMCs, and ACDP raises concerns over the signing of the expropriation bill. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana, and a very good afternoon. Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill Lewis says he has requested an urgent briefing from the police following a raid at the offices of 2 mayoral committee members. The Police Commercial Crimes Unit raided the offices earlier today. Police say they are conducting further probes into housing tender fraud in the construction sector within the Cape Town municipality. Investigators descended on the municipality's offices as part of an ongoing probe into alleged fraud into the construction industry. No arrests have been made, Hill Lewis explains.
I note the action today taken by authorities at the offices of mayoral committee members Alderman J.P. Smith and Alderman Limburg, who have informed me that they have offered full cooperation to the SAPS, but have not been made aware of any specific allegations at this stage. I have requested an urgent briefing from the SAPS to understand the details of this matter and will determine necessary further actions once this has been received. In the earlier matter relating to Malusi Boy, I was offered and given this full briefing, and have requested the same courtesy be extended to me in this matter as soon as possible.
The National Union of Mine Workers has called for the Minerals Council to halt the implementation of retrenchments in the sector. Young people from the NUM and the ANC Youth League staged a job security demonstration outside the Minerals Council in Johannesburg. Over 40% of the country's youth is unemployed, according to the quarterly labour force survey, and the NUM says Section 189 notices affect the poor the worst in low-growth economy. The NUM's Noel Pahlane says the lack of adherence to social and labour commitments by mining companies is concerning.
We are also here to call upon all the mining houses to adhere to their social and labour plans. The commitments which they have made when they were given the mining licenses. Most of the times when DMR is doing inspections, it comes to our attention that majority of these mining houses are not adhering to what they have promised for them to hold the mine license. No, this is not only going to assist workers, that also talks to the development and upskilling of employees. And even if mine companies have intentions to retrench in the foreseeable future, they will then have to state that and then put measures in place.
The signing of the expropriation bill into law continues to generate mixed reaction from various political parties in Parliament. The Act allows organs of state to expropriate property, but only for public interest. The ACDP says it is not satisfied with the decision taken by President Cyril Ramaphosa to enact the piece of legislation without proper scrutiny. Party MP Steve Swart says they believe the new law will not meet constitutional muster.
The ACDP is extremely disappointed that President Ramaphosa has signed the expropriation bill into law despite widespread opposition. Whilst supporting restitution with full compensation, we have consistently opposed expropriation of property without compensation, which will now be permitted under certain circumstances in the public interest. We believe this act will undermine investor confidence as it poses a severe threat to private property rights. This at a time when the country is desperate to attract foreign and domestic investment to stimulate economic growth and create jobs.
The Matthews Posa College in Mpumalanga is accused of failing to pay teachers and other staff their salaries. The private secondary school is further accused of unfairly dismissing some of the complaining teachers. Nahawa Regional Secretary Stumo Masilela says the matter has been referred to the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration. Doctors Without Borders say its staff in the Democratic Republic of Congo were forced to take shelter in a safe room for hours after the M23 rebels seized the eastern town of Minova in South Kivu province earlier this week. This comes amid growing concerns about the situation in the eastern part of the DRC as rebels battle government forces. The United Nations Organization Stabilization Mission in the DRC, which includes South African troops, has warned that the conflict in eastern DRC has escalated to alarming levels. MSF's country representative Emmanuel Lampert described frantic scenes as Minova's main hospital came under threat.
The whole situation was very disorganized, very chaotic. Many of the patients fled the hospital. And due to that, not being able to guarantee safety of our teams, we saw the necessity also to retrieve part of our medical colleagues in the hospital.
Recapping the top story, Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis says he has requested an urgent briefing from the police following a raid at the offices of two mayoral committee members. I am Ondela for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the Sour Free Agents chase their dream against Kaizer Chiefs and Rory McIlroy to return to RBC Canadian Open. More details at 4:30.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen. Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Tshwane. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Edenville has a crash at Modderfontein Road, and the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview queuing on both routes towards Gillilees interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a crash after the M41 gateway exit, and the N2 northbound in Mdloti has a stationary vehicle reported after the Sabaya Drive exit. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow moving as you approach Okavango Road. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Life-changing wins can happen when you play on the National Lottery. Just like the Lucky Powerball Plus winner who won over 33 million rand on Tuesday. Play Powerball for an estimated 100 million rand jackpot this Friday and you could be next. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. eTuba is the proud operator of the National Lottery. Abafana Best 10 are pumped up to get to the round of 16, but the Chili Boys believe they will display a happy walk after the final whistle. This is the Nedbank Cup round of 32. Golden Arrows FC versus Chipa United FC on Saturday, 25 January at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC One and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, what moves the National Pulse for you today? And just think about what I said. How do you internalize your understanding of the expropriation bill or act now, and how you internalize it to you in terms of what it means potentially for you, not a political party, not even a broader community, just yourself. I really would love to know. Under that broader issue of what moves the National Pulse. 086 000 2032. There's some really interesting thoughts coming from you. Let's hear them.
Ashraf, it's Nandu from KZN. Children in funded ECDs in creches, they receive a subsidy of 17 rands per child per day, and you have a situation where prisoners receive food worth 400 rands and above per day. So it just tells you where the priorities of the current government are going wrong. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And many people have raised that particular issue. Let's get to another big issue, certainly one of the biggest ones of the next few days and perhaps the next few months, right? The expropriation bill, now signed into law by the president. So there are different opinions, we know that. Let's get the thoughts of the Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Sihle Zikalala, and what he makes of that. So thank you for your time, Deputy Minister. You are now live on the National Pulse.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for having us on your program.
Thank you. First of all, I've noticed there's been I don't know. There's been outrage from both sides of the ANC. It's almost like the ANC is in the centre, to the left and the right has been outraged. Are you surprised at that?
Well, I'm not surprised. The bill is correct. It is going to help us expropriate properties and land for public use. And it means we expropriate in the interest of development and furthering the socio-economic interest of our country. The opposition by the DA or anyone from that side is expected, because they want to preserve the status quo where the majority of our people are left out of the economy and they don't own property and land.
Okay, now I hear that. I mean, that's on one side. Others have actually felt that, in fact, the president, in signing off the bill that by and large is without rather with compensation, they're also not happy anyway, right? But maybe here's the thought that I want to ask you. How do you see this play out? I mean, it's a question I put to the audience. Give me a practical expression of how this will play out, and maybe some examples of what may or may not happen.
Yes. What may not happen is to expropriate for an individual. But what will happen is to expropriate in the good interest of the public. Let me say you've got a building in the city. It is not maintained. And then you can then expropriate that because it poses a risk and threat to other individuals. I fully concur with the fact that it does not address the issue of land in particular, but it is going to help us. The DKA, if you see the dilapidated buildings in our cities, it's caused by the neglect of people who neglect buildings because they move to some other areas.
Okay, so the building one. So let me just interrupt you. The building one is a good example. I hear that, right? Give me more examples. I just want the audience to fully understand.
Another example is government has been charged a lot of money when it wants to bring development, whether you are constructing road, you are constructing dams, whatever, even for servitude. Some people will want money for electricity and ESCOM servitude. So now we'll be able to expropriate that for the community development interest.
Okay, that's another example. Then the broader issue for many people, they would think of it as land issues. That means maybe rural land on the one hand, and then other land that currently there are settlements on, people living there, that has been proven that historically the land didn't belong to them. Would that be part of the conversation as well?
Well, it will help to ensure that, you know, that in terms of the land, there is Valuer General. The Office of the Valuer General, it evaluate the land and then be able to decide on what is the price of that. But these can now enforce expropriation without, if it is for public use.
Okay.
Not for individual.
So you're saying with compensation or without compensation?
Without compensation.
Now, by and large, in terms of the report I saw yesterday...
Bill, if we can refer to the bill itself, it said with nil compensation.
With nil compensation. Okay, but that doesn't apply in all circumstances. I mean, that's a rarity, am I right? That's the exception to the rule.
Well, it does. It will apply to any circumstances or situation where it is proven that that expropriation is for public good. It will benefit the community as a whole.
So another example of, like, when you say the public good, and again, I'm thinking about people listening, it's like scratching their head. Explain, how would public good benefit people? Again, an example of that.
We define public good as anything that brings socio-economic development to the people. Something that does not bring benefit to one individual, but the society in that particular locality.
Okay, but when that comes, for most people, that would read historical land that people believe their ancestors were dispossessed of,
Yes,
as opposed to someone living in a suburb and we go to him and say, well, that land doesn't belong to you, that belongs to somebody else 120 years ago. I mean, am I right? I mean, we're talking about rural ancestral land.
Yes, that's correct.
How long before this process will play out from now it being enacted into from
right
law?
now it is a law. It can then be implemented from now onward.
Okay, and how? But practically, how long do you think it will take to play out? For example.
Well, it depends on organs of the state that need land or the community that need particular land. Once they apply in a relevant department, that department will have to use this act now.
Okay, now, one thing is what you're saying. Of course, you are a member as well of the African National Congress. Then you're the deputy minister. Now, the minister in your department is part of the government of national unity from a different political party. And you know what I'm going to say. Dean McPherson has tweeted saying, in terms of the law, only ministers implement acts and regulations. Anyone who claims to speak for the department is just giving an opinion. And then saying, as the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, there will be no expropriation of private property without compensation on my watch. The guarantee of property rights under Section 25 of the Constitution is not up for debate and is non-negotiable. So forget about anybody else.
That is his opinion. It is his view.
Yeah.
He thinks that he has a right over policy decisions. Policies are not made by individuals. They are made by South Africans. This started as a bill. There was a consultation process. It went to Parliament. It is now an act. I believe he made a submission when he came into the office to the president about the bill. He should have done so. And then the president have made a decision. In fact, that pronunciation means he will not implement the decision of the president, the decision of the people of the country to protect individuals who own land at the expense of the development of all South Africans.
Okay, so if it doesn't do that, and we know that the appointment of the executive is at the privilege of the president.
Many ministers who have failed on their duties have been taken to court, and he might end up facing that litigation, where people will say, this is the law, this is what we want, and if you are not doing that, they'll take you to court.
Okay, that's the people. He's also saying, and I'm going back to his tweet there,
If he tries to sabotage from within, even within the states, we can take that matter up.
Well, that's my point, where he says there will be no expropriation of private property without compensation on my watch. And I'm just thinking, besides others going to court, the simple thing, from a president point of view, I'm saying that maybe it will not be on his watch. What I'm trying to say, could this be grounds for the president to remove him?
No, I don't want to enter that space. But there are a number of people who are saying the GNU, the Government of National Unity, is an alliance of the ANC and DA, and it will frustrate transformation. Just in few months of the GNU, the president has signed a number of acts that will include your Bela bill. It includes your NHI. It now includes expropriation, and it shows that the ANC government, the 7th administration, is focused on transforming.
Okay, I hear that. I'm just going to move very quickly because we're just out of time here. Have you chatted to the minister? I take it you clearly must be on the same WhatsApp group. Are you talking to each other about
I am not a spokesperson of a minister. I'm appointed by the president.
No, I know, but you're in the same department.
To speak. We speak. We were together. I think we were together. We were in a meeting yesterday, though virtually. We discussed all other issues. It's just that we have not discussed this one. I'm hoping that we will discuss it soon.
But why wouldn't you not have discussed it now? It is that important.
No. We have discussed it when he came to the office that there is this bill. It is in the presidency, and then we are waiting for the president to sign.
Okay.
We have not discussed post the enactment of the
All right. Let's see what happens in terms of his response to his tweet.
No, this will be implemented.
Okay. Got that, Sitle Zikalana. Thank you for your time. Very clear. It will be implemented. Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. The Minister says otherwise. We'll chat to the EFF after this.
The Queens of South Africa's beautiful game are taking a break from their pitch duties to dress up and walk on the purple carpet. It's a special evening to celebrate players, coaches, administrators, and officials for their incredible devotion to the game. This is the Hollywoodbet Super League Awards 2024. From grassroots to glory. Witness the Hollywoodbet Super League Awards on Sunday, 26 January at 7:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 rand, 5 tower on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals, star white, Baba, and he owns 10 identical pairs. And before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance, let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Spillion's life and how it can change ours as well in just one day. Compliments for 2025, Mangani. Call me Mabel Goals because I'm coming for it all this year. Body, relationship, and financial goals. With my Just Invest account, financially I'm cruising. 2 more to go. You know any available Prince Charming voice, man?
I've got you, Mabel. Sorry. Mara, you can also be like Mabel and earn up to 8.25% in interest to start the year right. Open yours via the Money app today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply. Go to nedbank.co.za for more information.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, so that's another issue. We'll talk about the just coming out of the WEF, right? In terms of the G20 presidency of South Africa, linking it to climate change. So that comes up in about 10 minutes or just about 10 minutes time, okay? And don't forget, Temba Bavuma, South Africa's national cricket captain, is my guest on the Friday Fireside Chat. That's from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Really looking forward to spending time with a winner, really. I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? Okay, let's get another take on this issue. I made the point earlier on that the ANC has driven this, but on both sides of the ANC, the different political parties have different positions, and many of them disagree with them, and for very, very different reasons. I understand that the EFF, not happy, they've rejected Ramaphosa's signing of the expropriation bill. Let's find out why with Lubabalo Ncholo, who's the EFF researcher. Lubabalo, thanks for connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Right, so we know what was decided yesterday. We know that you're not happy as the EFF. Explain why.
Well, because the Expropriation Act is just a reenactment of the 1975 Expropriation Act. It was just developed to be aligned to the 1996 Constitution in terms of basically a few things. One is the clarification of the role of the courts in expropriation. 2 is the introduction of the concept of just and equitability in terms of compensation for expropriation. And 3 is the introduction of the public interest purpose for expropriation, which wasn't there in 1975. And public interest is only in relation to the nation's commitment to land reform. But the key fundamentals of the 1975 Act are still there in terms of making expropriation still compensation friendly. So the default position here is that there must still be compensation paid for expropriation. And as the EFF, we are patently opposed to that concept of compensating for expropriation. And I think our position in that regard is well documented. So there is nothing fundamentally different from the 1975 Act. It offers no significant departure from the past, and it's not going to offer any tangible solutions to what we are currently faced with as the country, and that is the government's spectacular failure to deal with land reform post-1994. Because 30 years later, we still haven't transferred more than 11% of the land from white people to black people in this country. And that's the fundamental problem that we are facing.
So, I mean, that's the part we heard. We understand. I mean, just correct me if I'm wrong. The EFF position has been effectively expropriation of all land in the country. That means all land would then be owned by the state, and then effectively the state would, rent it out to all of us? Is that correct?
So, the position of the EFF is that all land must be under the custodianship of the state. That's the principal position of the EFF, and we haven't moved from that. The motion we introduced in Parliament in 2018 for the expropriation of land without compensation was basically going to make that a practical reality. So this is far removed from that, but even by the standards of the Constitution, Ashraf, this act is quite draconian, because it provides in section 12.3 of the new act that there may be instances where land could be expropriated at nil compensation, and it outlines the specific categories of land that the concept of nil compensation should apply to, and that to me it takes it further than what section 25 of the Constitution provides, in that it limits even if this creative interpretation of section 25 that is espoused by some of the people who conceptualize the act were to be found to be realistic, then it limits the types of land that can be expropriated without any compensation.
So therefore, before we wrap up, so what then would be your position moving forward? Now, what in the practical expression of your opposition to it, and the DA opposing it for different reasons, but let's say yours, going forward, what would be your position on a day-to-day basis when these issues come up?
In relation to the act?
Yeah.
I think it will be challenged by right-wingers, for misinformed reasons, and I don't think this act would pass constitutional muster in the sense that it is patently opposed to what is provided for in the Constitution. And for our position is that we need to deal with the constitutional provision that protects private property of land, private ownership of land, and ensure that land is redistributed equitably amongst those from whom it was dispossessed.
Okay.
So as far as we are concerned, we, as indicated in the statement yesterday, we are still going to introduce legislative proposals in Parliament in relation to the custodianship to state custodianship of the land, and in relation to introducing an overarching land redistribution act to ensure that all the interests of the dispossessed are aligned in terms of legislation.
Okay, that's clearly your thoughts or the position of the EFF. Thank you for your time. And that's Lubabalo Inchola, the EFF researcher. We know their position, effectively opposing it, saying the EFF or the ANC has not gone far enough. It should actually be with no compensation, and effectively they're talking about taking over the land, all land in the country, and then effectively working your way over, I don't know, I suppose renting it back to us in some way or the other. But I don't think that's going to happen. Do you think ever that's going to really happen? Let's get the news headlines. It's for 30 years on Della.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Dean McPherson, has vowed that under his watch there will be no expropriation of private property without compensation. The community of Bloemfontein in Kraaifontein say they're still in shock following the fatal shooting of the school principal in Ekurhuleni Primary, and Rand Water has issued a notice to Gauteng residents of a scheduled repair to a leak on the 002 pipeline under Nasmith Road in Germiston in Ekurhuleni. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gous.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound slow moving towards Boysons, the N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards New Road exit, and the N4 Witbank Highway westbound in Pretoria has delays towards the N1 highway. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a crash after Sabaya Drive exit. Riverside Road has a crash near Thames Place, and Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound, a stationary vehicle before Old Oak Road, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound, slow moving towards Hospital Bend, and the M7 checks Hadville Drive southbound, queuing towards the R300 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Okay, Themba Bavuma, I'm just saying, 5 to 6 o'clock, if you don't mind. Fireside chat, right?
Well, clearly you're looking forward to it.
Of course I am. I don't even have a cricket top. Maybe I'll get one.
Yeah,
you have the Italian football top. Go with it. Nedbank Cup.
Well, we start things off with football this hour, where Kaizer Chiefs will compete against Free Agents FC in the Nedbank Cup last 32 stage. Free Agents aim to showcase their players' talents to attract offers, which aligns with the club's purpose since its formation back in 2018 by the owner and head coach Oladeru. Now, the ABC Municipality League team will face Amakosi at FNB Stadium on Sunday evening, focusing beyond just the outcome of the match.
The team was formed 2018. We named it Free Agent because of the purpose that we formed the team. We created the team because of a lot of players that doesn't have a team, that are roaming around the street, that doesn't have a place to train. So we come up with the idea that we provide a place for them to train. Then we can go around and play tournament, friendly matches, and see maybe 1 or 2 we have opportunities to secure a better job. So, and that was the purpose of starting the team in the first place. Then we name it Free Agent, that anybody that secure a team can go freely without getting any money from anybody. We're just providing a place for them to get back on their feet. So that was the purpose of creating the team.
Elsewhere, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta says that he's consulting his Arsenal players over new signings as the club look to bring in a striker before the January transfer window closes. Injuries to Gabriel Jesus and Bukayo Saka have added to concerns over the Gunners' lack of goal-scoring threats as they want to catch Premier League leaders Liverpool. Arsenal are the only club in the Premier League's top 6 without a scorer in double figures. Kai Havertz has 8 in the top flight this season, and Arteta says that he consults his players on potential signings as they are often able to give him valuable information that builds on computer data. In rugby, the Emirates Lions have been boosted by the return of winger Richard Kriel to their starting lineup as one of the 2 changes made from their big victory over the Dragons in the EPCR Challenge Cup for tomorrow's Vodacom URC Derby in Johannesburg against the Vodacom Bulls. Kriel was off with an injury but will now face his brother David, who has been included in the midfield for the Bulls. Kriel replaces Tapua Mafura in the wing, while other changes sees Ruan Delport come in for injured Darren Lensberg. There's also prompts a change on the bench, which sees WJ Steenkamp come in to face his former team as well. Then in golf, world number 3 and 2-time champion Rory McIlroy will compete in the RBC Canadian Open. This is from the 4th to the 8th of June. McIlroy won in 2019 at Hamilton Golf and Country Club and bridged cancelled tournaments in 2020 and 2021. Due to the pandemic, with another title in 2022. Now, the North Irishman finished in the top 10 in each of the past 2 years. Well, that's it. It is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
What's the one thing you'd like to ask Themba Bavuma? Like, of 100 things, like the most profound thing.
I have a spicy question. I'll tell you off air.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Off air. Spicy. Spicy? Got that. Let's get to the markets next.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Your best year starts at Dis-Chem with unbeatable deals for the whole family. Save R29.98 when you buy 2 packs of Softy 18 toilet rolls for just R200. Get 20% off all Sunlab products. Save R79.98 when you buy 2 Sanex shower gels or kids foam baths for only R100. Shop in-store and online for the lowest prices on the widest range of products. Now on until 16 February. Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Better health starts here.
The Natal Rich Boys want to demonstrate their wealth with a win to reach the last 16. But the Buccaneers say they will illustrate why they are the reigning champions. This is the Nedbank Cup round of 32. Richards Bay FC battles it out with Orlando Pirates FC this Sunday, 26 January at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Paswane Impalele with me as always. I hope you're well. Paswane is the Senior Accounts Manager at Markway Fund Managers. Right, give us an update on the local and global markets.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and happy Friday to all your listeners. Well, Ashraf, it's been a volatile week, it has to be said. Investors had a lot to digest, whether you think of the U.S. corporate economic data or Trump's presidential activities, which have put a lot of investors on edge. However, we're at the end of the week, and we're closing it off on good footing globally. We saw Mr. Trump was less aggressive on China, thus overall not going all the way out as one would have expected. This has created bullish relief, which weakened the dollar below 108 and has kept actually there because we got to digest more data from the likes of Europe, including the UK, which indicated that the private sector business activity is going in expansion, offsetting that manufacturing issue of concern and beating market expectation. And finally, the rub on the stem that kept the dollar down was the Bank of Japan. They staked the cost, they raised the rates. Those helped the likes of the yen and put the dollar on weaker footing, and this weaker footing supported commodity pricing. We see gold was up 0.9 at $2,779 an ounce. Oil was up 1.8% at $78.70 a barrel. Platinum was about 1.7% at $960 an ounce. And outside the commodities, we see that shares also did well, but their gains were kept because we're looking at a pivotal Fed decision coming next week. And it's currently, when we're seeing the dollar not even breaking down further than its trend levels, it is going to be caution going into the week. U.S. opened flat with the Dow only down 0.1. Europe CAC was up 0.5, FTSE down 0.4. DAX was flat. Better locally with commodities doing well. Resource sector continues to be a good buffer for us. JC was up 0.7, supported by resources 1.9%. Industrials were up 0.8, while our financials continued to decline, down 0.4. Looking into the currency space, the rand, like in many other currencies, did well against the dollar. The rand against the dollar is at 18.38, and rand against the euro 19.25, and the rand against the pound is at 22.81.
Okay, perfect. And you have a great weekend, because we will connect on Monday, Paswane Impalele. Right, so we have, that's the markets. We will have a chat with Themba Bavuma from 5 o'clock. You know, on a Friday, it's the Fireside Chat, 5 to 6. But your calls as well coming up. But an update on WEF after this.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Do you have land identified where those people who are directly in the path of these sinkholes can be relocated to?
So, for instance, in Kutong South, Extension 5 and 6, there were 753 units that were identified. And of those, I believe that 254 houses have already been moved, relocated. And I know that 200 people have already been allocated to those houses. There are proactive government interventions in that area.
That's Theo Nkonki. He's the spokesperson for the Gauteng Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, let's talk about WEF for WEF for Davos and the economy, and let's talk about climate change. All of that put together with Punky Modise. It's an important issue because South Africa, you know, now holds the presidency of the G20, and that must have been a big issue at Davos itself. But the question is, what will South Africa do with it? What will they do with it regarding the economy of not just our country, but impacting the world, vice versa? But certainly the issue of climate change, I think, is a big deal indeed, that somehow or the other needs to be resolved, or, well, maybe resolved is the wrong word. I think it needs to be activated, if it hasn't already done so, to the point of acceleration, because we've seen already how climate change impact is accelerating all of us anyway, in terms of the impact on our day-to-day lives. Right, Punky Modise with us, Chief Strategy and Sustainability Officer at the ABSA Group. Punky, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you calling me whilst I'm traveling back to the airport.
Oh, I see. Okay. Now we know, right? Yeah, okay. Don't use too much fuel because, you know, that also adds to climate, to greenhouse emissions. You know that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. You were at Davos. I guess now you're on your way back home, right? Firstly, what was it like, considering South Africa now holds the G20 presidency? I mean, could you see a shift in terms of how South Africa was envisioned and treated by other countries?
Yes. No, thanks a lot for that question. Certainly, I think South Africa is standing on a global stage in a big way, and it was very well recognized. There was a lot of energy, you know, positively so, and optimism around South Africa. And I think the president and the contingent from the country well represented to a point that every time when you walk around with your scarf, everybody would clearly say that that's a South African. So I think the mood around South Africa has significantly shifted, particularly also given the fact that we've managed to a large extent, I think, back the trend around load shedding. So that has been great, I think, to experience.
Okay. And then specifically with regard to just the issue of the G20, did you get a sense that, you know, besides the scarves, which I know are very, very colorful and they stand out, and we've done well on load shedding in the last year, right, that South Africa's stature, therefore, in terms of esteem, is held slightly differently. I mean, you know, let me put it this way. When you're the captain of the team and you're an ordinary player, you can see the difference in terms of how you're being handled and treated. Did you see that shift?
Yes, certainly I did see the shift, that there's a lot of respect, you know, that's been given to South Africa. And also, I mean, the president had quite a number of, big platforms that he had to speak to. And one of those is for the first time, he's had to sit in the center, stage and basically tell the story of what we're trying to achieve. And my sense is the three areas of focus are very clear. And the president articulated those very well and represented the country very well. Okay. And interesting also, just interesting to see the number of investors also that were sitting in the room and really listening to the conversation. And I think we sit, in the center of opportunity. It's really now up to us as a country to decide on how we want to take that opportunity forward. Do we squander it or do we use it in the right way? In the best interest of the country at large and the continent.
I think it's a very good point you make, right? Let's then talk about an area of your specific expertise around sustainability. You are the sustainability officer at ABSA Group. So the issue of climate change as an issue around sustainability is close to your heart. What do you think of, South Africa's current role around climate change and what role and how will that role change possibly now that they have the G20 presidency as well?
Yeah, my sense is South Africa is on a right trajectory. And I think the best place to start is just by saying that, climate risks are becoming a significant financial and operational burden, in particular, to businesses. And my sense is businesses must, proactively assess their exposure to these risks and also double down, on sustainability initiatives. Even if, policy change evolves, but it evolves at a slower pace. I think we can see already the signs are there, everywhere you look, we can clearly see that climate change, is on us. And really, it's up to businesses and also individuals, to take now the curtain and run with it. We can't wait really for government, to be playing that part. But I think us as business and government, we can work closely and collaborate a lot more closely in terms of ensuring that we sustainably, move people forward as far as the climate agenda is concerned.
And while you were there, Donald Trump, now the president of the USA, effectively gave an up yours to the Paris Agreement, right? How impactful may that be on the global fight against climate change?
Yeah, I think it's a worrying, trend or trajectory. But listening to Europeans today speaking at the closing session, I was left with a sense of optimism. But there's clarity that people have to transition. And we have to transition like yesterday. So the agenda will continue. And my sense, if I look at the US in particular, there's a lot of structural shifts that they've already made around, green energy. So I think, yes, there will be lots of rhetoric, out there, and that will continue. But the climate change journey is actually, a journey that we should not lose sight of because it's going to gain momentum as we move forward. And, the adverse weather conditions are actually here to stay. And that's why there was a lot of discussions around the fact that we should continue investing, in capabilities that actually lessen the impact of climate change.
And therefore, picking up not just at Davos, but certainly what happened at the COP29. Some thoughts in terms of the lessons learned that South Africa can activate an action plan that will see significant changes around climate change, especially in our country.
Absolutely. I think, South Africa has shown leadership, especially as far as it relates to the JETP program. The public and private sector have worked quite closely, to curb some of the load shedding related challenges. And for me, that is a clear demonstration of the capacity that South Africa has when they collaborate effectively in partnership between government as well as the business sector, to really progress on matters of public interest, particularly for the country.
And lastly, as we wrap up, just very quick answer, in terms of, Team South Africa's message at Davos, what for you sticks out?
I think for me, what's sticking out is that the week has been a powerful reminder, really, of the urgency and the opportunity that lies before us. The conversations, the partnership, and the ideas that were shared at Davos, they really affirm the critical need for bold, inclusive leadership, and also a commitment to building a resilient and sustainable pathways for global growth. And in particular, I think us as a continent, we've got a lot of opportunities, particularly given the youthful, people that we have across the entire continent.
And that's where we leave it. Punky Modi says, safe trip back home, safe flight back home. Thank you for your time, Chief Strategy and Sustainability Officer at APSA, the APSA Group, coming back from Davos in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum.
Hey, you know what, South Africa? We're just not talking about enough.
Excuse me?
Use it liberally. Use it early. Use it with your folks.
Hey, careful, young lady.
Yes, it'll be awkward at first, but not quite as awkward as your tidy-whitey wearing father-in-law spending his golden years on your couch. Wouldn't you agree? Finances is not a dirty word. Let's start talking about it, Mzansi. Find out how at livewithconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services, and registered credit provider.
Ever since Uspillion won 5,000 rand, 5 dawa on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals. Star white, Baba. And he owns 10 identical pairs. And before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance, let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Billion's life and how it can change ours as well. In just one day.
Abafana Best 10 are pumped up to get to the round of 16, but the Chili Boys believe they will display a happy walk after the final whistle. This is the Nedbank Cup round of 32. Golden Arrows FC versus Chippa United FC on Saturday, 25 January at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we'll be chatting to Themba Bavuma coming up after 5. So we've got another 6 minutes left on the normal show because on a Friday we have this fireside chat. And I speak to someone of prominence and we just literally chat about whatever we should be chatting about, right? In fact, the point that Tumi said is like, we should ask him is like, what does it feel like for him as the national captain of the cricket, the test team as well as the one-day team, not being picked for the SA20 league that's currently being played in South Africa? We'll ask him that later on. Let's get your thoughts, however. Tanya in Port Shepstone, go ahead. Hi.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for taking my call. Apologies, my line is very bad.
It's not bad. I can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I just want a quick comment on the expropriation bill. You were chatting to a previous caller, I think it was Mark from Newlands.
Yes.
And, the likelihood of them actually coming and taking his car and his antique collection is next to zero.
Yeah.
But the situation feels very different in real indeed to farmers, as we all know that this really is about land and farmland. And I'm not talking about the masses of non-functional farmland that's currently owned by governments. So I just quickly wanted to convey from a farmer in KZN who has a fully functional, profitable farm, that this is extremely unsettling. And I'd like to ask the policymakers, how do they not see that there is no incentive for us to expand our farming operations, increase infrastructure, and hire more people, i.e. job creation, if we are unsure about the security of the land we paid the bank for? And surely this goes against growing the country to benefit us all.
Well, you see, you've raised a very important point. That is why it's a point I made just a few minutes ago, in fact, to say, can you personalize it just away from the dogma and the philosophical issue?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to you personally? So it may not be an issue for me, so I'm not thinking about it, but you're a farmer, you absolutely are thinking about it. I do think, yes, there needs to be an urgent, let's call it a scenario plan to say these are the type of things we're going to consider. But for example, your farm in Port Shepstone would not be considered, so don't worry about it. So as quickly as possible, because you can't be on hold. I mean, I accept that absolutely.
Yeah, and just on a last note, they say sure there'll be due process and it will be in public interest only, etc., etc. But how do we trust the people who we can't even trust with our taxpayer money? You know, that's the fear as a farmer, I think.
Well, I think it's a good point. So maybe the last thing to you, what would you be doing next? I mean, you've aired your thoughts on this on the National Pulse. I'm glad you've done that because now we have a sense of what you're feeling. But beyond that, would you be asking questions now through other sources, or would you just wait and see?
Well, you kind of feel like is the water boiling slowly around you, and you know you're not aware, or it is frightening, and I don't know what the solution, and I don't know what to do next.
Okay, and maybe it's an issue that I think we need to pick up with next week, to look at the personal issues that people have and the absolute concerns like yours, right? And let's see how we can get that answered, if any. I'm not too sure anybody can answer it in one day, but maybe Tanya, leave your number with Keys. You never know what may come up. Thank you.
We just need some clarity. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you for your show.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I think that's an important point. That's the reality. If they're uncertain, even if they get compensated for now, they're not going to grow their farm. That is true, isn't it? So what do you do next? How soon do you know where you stand? Eddie in Odendaal, let's go for it.
My brother.
Yeah, how's it, Eddie?
And your team as well. No, I'm saying, Mike thinks this expropriation is automatic. It's not automatic. There's a process towards it. And in the process, whether the owner or whoever getting engaged, it's not just an automatic process that takes place. You get engaged until you are convinced that, now I understand why the government wants this land for. And there must be maybe something like a tribunal and we also respect our courts. I don't know why people should panic, but I understand that, like your previous caller, who said, how can we trust people who cannot be trusted with our taxes and so on? And one is so hopeful because, this GNU, to a certain extent, it tells us that the democracy of this country, is getting better, not because of the ANC and the DA, even if it's another party as well. What I'm saying to Mike is that this is not automatic. There's a process. And Mike
Mike knows that. You know that. I know that. I just think Mike's exactly saying he's going to upset some people. I mean, he's just offside. And that's why I told him that. I mean, he's worried about his garden utensils and his bike. I mean, clearly, Eddie, do we really need to talk about it? I mean, seriously. Eddie, got that in Odendaal. Right, let's see if we can play one or two quick WhatsApps because we can then chat to Themba Bavuma after 5, right? So here we are.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I don't understand how Mr. Ramaphosa thinks. How do you send our soldiers into the Congo without gathering intelligence over who is funding the M23 rebels? I bet you 10 times out of 10 that it's the French. So it's a complete waste of time to go into the Congo and try and bring about peace there because that president of the Congo and Mr. Kagame are both puppets of the French. And this whole Mpox thing and the bombing of SANDF soldiers was meant to intimidate them and get them out of there because they're disturbing the French from extracting minerals from the Congo like nobody's business. Thanks, Lionel Whitbank.
It is so nice that the Auditor General is able to make its employees happy because everything that you do to make an employee happy costs money. Programs that we run cost money, team building, employee wellness. But if I can host an employee wellness event or a team building event, I'll be in the front page of a newspaper. Someone will be telling that we've bought food for employees, not realizing that it takes money to make employees happy. There is nothing for free. So well done to them, but then they come and chase after us and tell us that we spend money unnecessary. Thanks.
Okay, point made. We're going to have to leave it at that for now because, we're going to chat to Themba Bavuma after 5. Please listen out for that. Tell your chommies as well. It's really great if they can connect to the national captain on the National Pulse. But let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. Minister speaks on Appropriation Act and Ukraine hits oil refineries in Russia.
Good day to you. The Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Dean McPherson, has vowed that under his watch there'll be no expropriation of private property without compensation. The Minister was reacting on the signing of the expropriation bill into law. Some of the political parties under the GNU have also lamented the decision by President Cyril Ramaphosa to sign the bill into law. McPherson says property rights under Section 25 of the Constitution are not up for debate and are non-negotiable simultaneously. Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis says he's requested an urgent briefing from the police following a raid at the offices of 2 mayoral committee members. The police's commercial crimes unit raided the offices today. Police say they're conducting further probes into housing tender fraud in the construction sector within Cape Town. Investigators descended on the municipal offices as part of an ongoing probe into alleged fraud in the construction industry. No arrests were made. Hill-Lewis explains.
I note the action today taken by authorities at the offices of mayoral committee members Alderman J.P. Smith and Alderman Limburg, who have informed me that they have offered full cooperation to the SAPS, but have not been made aware of any specific allegations at this stage. I have requested an urgent briefing from the SAPS to understand the details of this matter and will determine necessary further actions once this has been received. In the earlier matter relating to Malusi Boy, I was offered and given this full briefing and have requested the same courtesy be extended to me in this matter as soon as possible.
Community in Kraaifontein in Cape Town say they're still in shock following the fatal shooting of the school principal of a local primary school. The 54-year-old was shot in his car yesterday and his wife wounded. Counselling is being provided to affected people and learners. Community members had this to say.
It's not the first guy that died in the same spot. But this one, at least, I was in the house. I just heard the shots. Can't even face nobody because we don't know who and why and when they're coming again for who again.
What happened here yesterday really shocked us as the community in Blokenbos. We did not expect this to happen to our principal. He was a man who is well known and loved in the community. We would like the police to amp up their protection because we don't feel safe.
Rand Waters issued a notice to Gauteng residents of a scheduled repair to a leak on a water pipeline in Germiston, east of Johannesburg. The repair work will take place from 6 in the morning tomorrow until 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. Rand Waters spokesperson, Makinisi Maru, says during this time the pipeline will be temporarily shut off. She says this maintenance project will impact water supply to Swane, Ekululeni, Johannesburg and Madibeng.
In terms of the communication protocol, Rainwater has formally informed the affected municipal customers of the pending project by issuing a 21-day advance notification to allow the entities to communicate with the affected residents to plan and execute appropriate contingency plans. As a result, the affected municipal customers will advise consumers on the extent of the water supply shortages in their respective areas.
Ukraine's military says it's hit an oil refinery and a pumping station overnight in the Russian city of Ryazan, southeast of Moscow. The BBC's Danny Eberhardt has that story.
People flee as a fireball erupts at the stricken oil refinery in Ryazan in video footage from Russian social media verified by the BBC. The authorities have said little other than an enterprise had been hit by falling debris, a common explanation. Ukraine has also again struck an important microelectronics plant in the southwestern Bryansk region. Russian state media said a warehouse and production facilities had been damaged at the Kremny L plant, with production now suspended.
Top story, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure has vowed that under his watch there'll be no expropriation of private property without compensation. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Hoos.
In sports this hour, Sundowns not underestimating Sibanye, Blitzboks into Perth Sevens playoffs with a game to spare, and Sinner sets up an Australian Open final against Zverev. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Kilulis Interchange. And the N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards New Road exit. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a crash reported after the Sabaya Drive exit and the N3 westbound queuing towards Cliffdale. In Cape Town, the M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound has a stationary vehicle reported before Old Oak Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Owning a small or medium-sized business takes courage, skill, and determination. The Clientele Legal Business Plan is there to protect, guide, and assist your business in managing the legal risks. Let us handle your labor matters, employment contracts, CCMA referrals, and so much more. Our team of professional lawyers are standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 42770. That's SAFM to 42770. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 rand, 5 dawa on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals. Star white, Baba. And he owns 10 identical pairs. And before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance, let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Spillion's life and how it can change ours as well in just one day.
What you're about to hear is not an email from Standard Bank. Good day, Dave. You haven't updated your details, so your account will soon be blocked. Please confirm your card number, bank PIN, card CVV number by clicking the link below. What? Don't fall for it. Standard Bank will never ask for your banking details in an email. Visit our help center on the banking app to learn more or call our fraud line on 0800 222 050. Another lesson to hashtag beat the scam. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so every Friday we go into fireside chat mode where we speak to a person of prominence, really, and we just chat and we just chill about whatever comes to my mind, and certainly the mind of a guest. We'll just talk about many things, right? Probably time for 3 calls, not now, later on, maybe 3 calls maximum. But my guest today is Themba Bavuma, who's the South African cricket captain, in fact, captain of the Test team as well as the one-day team. And we'll talk to him, up to 6 o'clock. So, Themba, good to connect with you. Hi.
Hi there. I hope you're well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a real privilege to talk to you. It's not every day we get to speak to the national captain of a cricket team that's also in the final of the World Test Championships. I think, is that the first time, by the way, that South Africa's playing in a final of the World Test Championship?
It's the first time, yes. The competition itself for the championship is quite new, but yes, it is the first time. It will be the first time.
So all I want to ask you is, when we finally win it against Australia, and hopefully I'll get a ticket to go to Lord's, right? When we finally win it, please come back home and have a chat with me, because we will talk about this incredible moment in not just in your life, but the players, but for South Africa too. You'll do that?
Definitely.
Well, and you definitely need to win, right? Have you ever thought, and I know it's premature, and I want to move on to other things too, but it must be playing in your mind, because you're either going to win or you're going to lose, right? So let's talk about the win. If you win, and I know it's a good few months down the line. I think it's June, July, is that right?
June.
Yeah, June. So it's a good 5 months from now. Have you thought even now about, like, if you win, what would your victory speech be like?
Sure, I haven't thought that far. I've kind of tried to picture the moment, what it will what it will look like, what it will feel like. Sure, but in terms of the victory speech, I think I'm never someone that really prepares any speeches or any talk, so I kind of prefer or enjoy just speaking from the heart. I'm sure though there'll be a lot of emotion to it, but yeah, I think like you say, it's June is what 6 months away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'd be lying to say that I haven't pictured myself and the team being victorious through those 5 days.
And you should. I mean, I would do exactly the same thing. It's a very natural thing to say, what happens if we win? Can you just... Because, I mean, you want to do that because that actually brings you up to a level of heightened expectation followed by, obviously, you need to be in the best shape you can possibly be, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I also think it's part of just preparing yourself mentally for what's to come. I think part of that as well is preparing for whatever happens that you didn't plan for. So, mentally you want to be as ready as possible. You're obviously optimistic about it all. You also know that just because you see it in your mind, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to play out the way that you'd want it. But mentally, making sure that you are able to seize the moment, to seize those opportunities, I think it does start by seeing it in your mind.
And I mean, as the captain of the test team and the one-day team, I've got that right? Not the 20-over team, the other two. When you encounter people, and I don't mean cricket people, I mean other people, in the public spaces, you maybe in a shopping mall or wherever you are. What's the most common thing people ask you?
What is the most? It depends on the age, to be honest.
Okay.
If it's maybe a young kid who, I guess, is just an avid sportsman, they'll always ask, how does it feel representing your country? And then if it's an elder person, just the common question is, how do you deal with all the pressure and responsibility?
Yeah, how do you deal? And I mean, do you have long conversations if you're in public spaces? I mean, you could be shopping, you could be sitting at a restaurant. Are those conversations long, or do you decide already? Listen, I already got like 2 minutes or something.
Look, I try to entertain as much as I can. But look, I'm not a person of many words, so the conversations can never be that long.
Now, I've often said in the past, I mean, all of us did it. You'd run for that. For the autograph, and then you never use it again, and you don't even know if it's genuine. You just, well, I mean, of course you're there, so it's genuine, but often you just don't know and you never see it again. But I'm suggesting that the selfie is the autograph of of the 21st century, isn't it? I mean, everybody wants a picture. That never used to happen before because nobody had the access to any cameras near them.
True. I mean, back in the day, it was just the signature. You had to make sure you had a nice, fancy-looking signature. Nowadays, it's about you actually have to be able to use these smartphones that you get. So yeah, everything is selfie.
And I mean, do you get because again, I mean, somebody else could take the photo, but if you're doing a selfie, you need to take it yourself, right? Like, is that part of? It sounds crazy, but it's like part of your training as well to make sure you take the perfect picture because it's you with a supporter, but obviously you want to use it on your social media pages too, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's part of the training, but I guess there's the expectation that you kind of know what you're doing. I've disappointed some fans because I'm not really savvy when it comes to social media, taking photos and all of that. But yeah, I think I have gotten a bit better.
All right, last thing on the selfie bit, if you recollect when you were a lightie growing up, right? Who did you ask for an autograph that's now worth something really special?
So something I came across last year. So West Indies, when they toured to South Africa, they played at my hometown in Langa. I think it was the late 90s, could have been even early 2000s. And the West Indian side then compromised of Brian Lara. We took a picture with them. So still got that picture. I actually sent it to Brian Lara when my friend reminded me of that picture. So that's probably my most prized possession He didn't sign it, but I've got the picture.
It doesn't need to sign them. It's got the picture. And I was reading about Brian Lara the other day, just by the way, and saying, he, I think Lara and Viv Richards are both West Indians, of course, right? Had this incredible ability. They were not just good. They had this ability to excite and change their game plan even after the delivery is ball. Like as the ball comes to you, they could choose in a split second that average people, normal people, and I'm saying even like you you just don't have that. I mean, so well done to you for at least having the picture of Brian Lara. Absolutely, yeah. Let's move on to other things. You mentioned Langa, right? So tell me about your journey from Langa. I mean, when did you first play cricket? Can you remember? Like had a bat in your hand and maybe the image of you playing in Langa, I would think.
Sure. I mean, for as long as I remember, look, it was. I mean, I grew up with uncles who'd love the sport. I grew up in a community that loved the sport, so it was very easy for me to get into cricket and other sports as well. From what my uncles told me, I always used to walk around with a cricket bat. I used to ask our late grandmother, to throw me balls in the yard. So I guess I was always crazy about cricket. And I guess the older I got, the more my imagination started becoming a thing. I would imagine and speak about playing for South Africa. Yeah, man, for as long as I remember, cricket has always been a thing. It's always been a passion. And I guess now I'm very fortunate that I'm able to live out my passion.
And when you were growing up at that time, I mean, we always have a hero to say, one day I want to be like this person.
Yeah.
Who was that person for you?
So, I mean, for us, considering those times, at home they watched a lot of the West Indian cricket team, not so much the South African cricket team. So, they would speak a lot about, obviously, Brian Lara, and that's who I came to see a lot more. But they'd also speak about your Viv Richards, Carl Hooper, all those guys. So Brian Lara, he was a thing for me, as well as Sachin Tendulkar.
Well, you certainly choose very, very well, Brian Lara and Sachin Tendulkar, both dominant. Well, I mean, hopefully one day somebody's going to say, well, you know what, Temba Bavuma inspired me and I wanted to play cricket like him, and look at me, I'm playing for my country because of Temba Bavuma. I mean, that would be fantastic, isn't it, for someone interacted with you and you inspired them?
Yeah, I think that would be humbling, to be honest. I mean, I've got the opportunity to, like I said, live out my passion, but also represent my country. And in doing so, we have the ability as well to inspire other young kids coming through to be like us or to be even better like us. So I think if that's a legacy that I can leave behind, I think I can be very happy, if I could say, about my contribution to the game.
And you said you come from a cricket family in Langa. I mean, by the way, I mean, as myself, the Garda community or the Garda family are very synonymous with cricket, let's say sackbok cricket, so in the black cricket era of those years. So myself. So, I mean, it's happened to me where I went to a school, a new school, and the school teacher just saw me, and I didn't realize, but he recognized me, right? And he's like, "You're a Garda, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you're playing tomorrow." Never mind that I was pretty useless, but I mean, he made the assumption if I'm a Garda, I must be able to play cricket. I mean, I could play, but I was certainly not I was not Brian Lara, if you get my point. But the question I want to ask you, did you find that as well in yourself, considering you to come from a cricket family, that even in the township, there was an expectation that, you're Temba Bavuma, you're this kid, you must play cricket and you must be very good. Did that happen to you too?
I guess I got preferential treatment.
There we are.
Look, like I said, the family was known within the community. They're obviously involved in cricket within the community. So, whenever I needed cricket equipment, cricket bats, I'd be able to get from whatever the touring counties or teams would leave behind. So I never struggled from an equipment point of view. And yeah, I think you probably did get a little bit more respect or favor than the other guys. But I think you still had to be able to bat a ball. If you weren't able to do that well, then it became a bigger problem.
Well, as someone has said before, you'll have more bats than runs, and that's no good either, isn't it?
Yeah.
What, tell me a moment that you realized you were moving from playing in the township, and I'm thinking about playing in the streets, I'm visualizing it right in Langa. But from that point to the point where you told yourself or someone told you, Themba, you're actually good enough to take this game up professionally. There must have been that moment that it happened. When did that happen?
So I think like playing in the township, a lot of street cricket. There wasn't age groups, right? So like if you were 11-year-old, you would be competing or playing against a 13 or 14-year-old. So I guess for me, where I felt that at that age, at 11, as small as I was, I still felt that I could compete with the other 13, 14s and 15-year-olds. That gave me the confidence to feel like, okay, maybe, this can be more than just a passion. And I mean, those games are very competitive. Sometimes they would be even aggressive. I mean, a 15-year-old doesn't want to be outwitted by a 11 or 12-year-old. So you had to make sure what you said. But yeah, they were very competitive.
Well, so there was that. So it was more a realization that you actually could compete with the big guys. So maybe there's a career for you. We'll talk about what happened next in terms of professional career in a moment. Themba Bavuma with me, South Africa's captain. We'll have maybe 3 calls maximum we can take if you wish to call, particularly if you're someone that actually knows Themba Bavuma. What about that? 086 000 2032 and WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. You also can add your comments on social media. Tag me and SFM Radio on the X platform as well as on Facebook too. Themba Bavuma with me.
The Natal Rich Boys want to demonstrate their wealth with a win to reach the last 16. But the Buccaneers say they will illustrate why they are the reigning champions. This is the Nedbank Cup round of 32. Richards Bay FC battles it out with Orlando Pirates FC this Sunday, 26 January at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Themba Bavuma with me as part of the Friday Fireside chat, right? When did you realize you made it, Themba? One thing is from saying I think I'm good enough to take up this game, but there must have been a moment in your career where you said, actually, you're already a professional, right? So you're playing for your province, but or the country, and you say, you know what, I've actually made it.
I think probably when I scored my first century, and it happened to be in the test format. It happened to be at Newlands. I think that gave me a lot of confidence and belief that I belonged at this level, but also I belonged, or I deserved the seat that I have within the changing room. Coming in as a young 23, 24-year-old, sitting along the likes of Dale Steyn, Mone Moko, Hashim Amla, it can be very intimidating. And I mean, you look at these guys, you watch them bat in the nets, they make the game look so simple. And I guess you always have the doubts if you can be able to replicate or get anywhere near close to how they've performed.
And you wouldn't think like the fact that you get selected in the first place says, hey, I must be pretty good if they're selecting me. You're saying you needed something of your own in the game to prove that actually, yes, I'm good enough.
Yeah, I think as players we always have doubts, and I think once you go up a stage, there'll always be some type of doubt, or there'll always be an element of at least proving to yourself, that you belong at this level, and that generally comes after some sort of success or performances. But I think that exists in a lot of players when you're going up the ranks.
I'm sure about that. Yeah. How in terms of just a cricket point now, and I want to talk to you about other things too, but let's say in terms of the game of cricket, is there anything you'd like to get off your chest? Meaning that anything you feel like, you know what, I've got a platform and I want to say it. So go ahead and say it.
No, not really. I mean, it's an open-ended question. I think, look, man, I've had a very good career, if I could say. I'm very grateful for everything that has happened. I mean, I'm very fortunate to be able to live the life that I have, the responsibilities that I have, and the pressure that I have to deal with. But yeah, I'm very grateful for everything, really.
And okay, outside of cricket, then, I mean, let's say if we talk about South Africa, social, politically, economically, anything you'd like to just express an opinion on?
Nah, look, I was told by my dad to stay away from politics. He was a journalist, so he understands that side of the world a lot better. And he told me from a young age, don't get involved with politics. I mean, you're aware of politics. If you're a captain, you can't exactly steer away from it. But I mean, I don't live in that space.
And so you stay away from. I mean, but do you get asked about it as a captain of the team, both when you're at home and abroad? And I don't mean when we're watching you at the end of a presentation on the pitch, because I think that's very basic stuff about the game. But I mean, you maybe do like feature interviews in different countries, be it South Africa, Australia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, wherever you may be, England. Is there an approach to say, let's understand your story from a social political point of view? Do you get that?
Look, I think I mean, with sports, especially in South Africa, you can't separate politics. Politics was there from the beginning. It's because of politics that we are able to ply our trades on an international scale. It's because of politics that we have the opportunities that we have. So it's very hard to separate the two. And I mean, it's South Africa, right? We live in a society that has the history that it has. So, certain things are always gonna be linked to either race, to either politics, to either transformation, whatever it is. So, I mean, as much as I say I steer away from them. I mean, if a question gets asked, I'll answer it as best as I can. But I don't live within that space, if I could say.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. I mean, a lot is made of yourself being the captain of the team and the first, and I need to qualify it when we say whether it's the first black captain or the first black African, because I think people like Hashim Amla and Ashwell Prince have captained the team. There could be a few others that I don't know. I think Makhaya Ntini just never did so. And many said, well, how can it be? Was like the best player. But I remember him saying it up front on an interview on Metro FM. He's like, I don't want to be the captain. You get players like that. They have they just great in other things, and they just don't want to be captain, right? But tell me about that responsibility for you. Not just being the captain, but now the captain that is seen as a symbol. I suppose one thinks about a Siya Kolisi too. You're seen as a symbol very differently to just another player.
Yeah, I think it can be challenging, to be honest. I mean, I first encountered it when I was selected for the national team. When for me, I just felt that I was just a young guy who had a passion for the game, who just worked hard enough to get the opportunity. But then, there was an element of me being the first black African. And then I also happened to be a batsman as well, when we'd never had that before. So, that came with certain, there was a certain narrative to that. And with that narrative came certain, I guess, opinions and perceptions about it. Most importantly, it came with certain pressures, where because you were seen as this beacon of hope and this icon, you couldn't step, you couldn't put a bad foot forward, I think what I struggled with a lot was my performances, good and bad, always been seen from a racial point of view. It was never just, here's a young batter who's just scored runs. Let us celebrate maybe the way his technique has showed up or his application of the game. It's always the politics of it all always seems to come about. And I think I struggled with that for quite a while. And I think when I was made captain, that even all of that was kind of amplified. It it went to another level, a level where I think it's you can never really be prepared, especially, and I think you require the right type of support around you, if I could say so. I mean, it has been challenging.
Okay.
I mean, the pressure is super high, right? I mean, every time you speak to, if I go back home to Langa and you speak to people there, all they say to you is that you need to score 100 the next game, and you're like, geez, dude, like it doesn't work like that. A striker doesn't go and score a hat trick every game he plays.
Absolutely.
But that is the expectation that has been created. That is the expectation that they have in their head, that this guy is there as the captain, so every game he goes, he scores 100. If he doesn't score 100, he's pretty much failed. And I mean, betting is a tough art in itself.
All right, I'll talk about your coping mechanisms maybe in a moment. Let's continue. We'll chat to Themba Bavuma. We continue to talk to him. But we'll have a pause for a few minutes as we get to other things like the markets and sport. But first things first, the news headlines with Greg House.
A quick look at the headlines. The Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security in Cape Town, JP Smith, says he's the subject of a political smear campaign. The Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure's vowed that under his watch there'll be no expropriation of private property without compensation. And Japan says a Chinese man's been sentenced to death for murdering a Japanese schoolboy. All those details and more at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound and four-ways is queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The N3 northbound and Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gillilees interchange. The N1 southbound has delays towards Grassmere services. The N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards New Road exit. In Pretoria, the N4 Witbank Highway westbound has delays towards the N1 highway. Eskempa-Hleli Drive northbound has delays towards Moot Street, and the N1 southbound a stationary vehicle at Rigel Avenue. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards Cliffdale, the N2 northbound has a crash after the Sabai Drive exit, and the N3 westbound queuing towards the Pavilion Shopping Centre. In Cape Town, Strandfontein Road southbound slow moving towards Spine Road. Noyensfontein Road in Kales River has a crash before Belhar Drive. Marine Drive northbound in Tableview is slow moving towards Dolphin Beach Hotel, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
I did say before when I went to Egypt, people didn't ask about Chiefs and Pirates at all. They just said, "Hi, are you from South Africa?" Mamelodi Sundowns. So, do you have a Mamelodi Sundowns story?
It's a big club in Africa, but Mamelodi Sundowns head coach Miguel Cardoso insists that they will be taking Sibanye Golden Stars very seriously in the Nedbank Cup round of 32 clash at Loftus Versfeld tomorrow. Bafana Bastille are betting to win the competition for a 7th time as they look to deny Orlando Pirates a 3rd consecutive title, having lost to them in 2024. Now, Downs have doubts over fullbacks Khuliso Modau and Tapelo Morena, who went off injured against Magezi, while goalkeeper Ronwen Williams serves the final of his 3-match ban. And the Brazilians have reached the final 3 times in the last 5 years, and they've only failed to progress from the opening round twice in the last 17 seasons. Elsewhere, Tottenham Hotspur Ancha Postecoglou says that striker Dominique Solanke is set to be out for around 6 weeks with a knee injury as the club's injury crisis deepens. Solanke was one of the 14 senior players absent from Spurs' 3-2 win at Hoffenheim in the Europa League on Thursday. And afterwards, Postecoglou says that he expects him to be out until early March. Meanwhile, Chelsea manager Enzo Maresca says that he has full support for Pep Guardiola and says that the struggling Manchester City boss needs support after a run of 2 wins in 7 European games left. City's Champions League knockout phase hopes under threat. Now, Chelsea visit the Premier League champions tomorrow, who are 5th in the standings, trailing Maresca's side in 4th by 2 points after a dismal run in the lead up to Christmas. And Maresca also believes that Chelsea will find it difficult to beat City despite their poor run. In rugby, the Springbok Sevens beat Australia 10-7 in their second game to end day one with 2 out of 2 in the Perth Sevens tournament. Donovan and David Bretz scored a try each to help South Africa to go top of Group A. South Africa now on 6 points, 2 ahead of USA and Argentina. Meanwhile, the Sharks will resume their Vodacom URC campaign in the Welsh capital this weekend, and Vincent Chituka returns to action as captain of a reject Sharks side that includes two-time world champion Vincent Koch and Makazola Mapimpi, as well as Jordan and Jaden Hendricks. Now, in tennis, Novak Djokovic says that he will continue aiming to add to his record of 24 titles. This is despite injuries disturbing his charge. The 35-year-old was forced to retire from his Australian Open semi-final against Alexander Zverev due to a muscle injury, and this is his second injury setback at the Grand Slams in a year, having pulled out of the French Open with a knee injury before his quarterfinal with Casper Ruud. But in that final, it's going to be Yannick Sinner and Alexander Zverev. Then anything's off with cricket. Junior Proteas head coach Dinesha Devnarain says that they will take lessons from their unbeaten run in the Super Sixes of the ICC Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup. South Africa head into the Super Six stage after the dominant win by 41 runs against Nigeria on Wednesday. And Devnarain says that she's happy that the team is in a good place going into the next stage of the tournament. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
Well, what's your weekend plans? Work plans and then social plans?
No work plans, but I'm hiking. I'm hoping to hike tomorrow.
Oh, really? Okay. And then tennis Saturday morning and Sunday morning?
Yes.
What times are the finals?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know? You better check up. And Djokovic is not playing?
Not playing, unfortunately.
See, if one is a sinner, he's not the saint either in that case by not playing.
Yeah.
People are disappointed. Well, whatever it is, someone said, tell Tumi to take a picture with her football top and post it on social media. The
Italy top I'm wearing. I was about to say that actually you are calling me out. But anyway,
yes, I am.
Look at the YouTube channel, guys. Come on.
Check it out on live streaming. But someone said, please take a picture and tweet it out as well. So I'm just passing the message on to you anyway.
I'll take a picture.
And then they said, maybe you should take a picture every single day you come in with your different sports tops that you wear, whichever ones they are.
Okay.
Anyway.
Like yesterday, I was wearing the Proteas pink ODI Day jersey.
And the day before?
What was I wearing the day before? I forgot.
We're talking fashion, by the way. Okay, sports fashion. It's a whole big industry. Okay, you work out whatever it was, and you have a great weekend.
Righty.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks to you.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Abafana Best 10 they are pumped up to get to the round of 16. But the Chili Boys believe they will display a happy walk after the final whistle. This is the Nedbank Cup round of 32. Golden Arrows FC versus Chipa United FC on Saturday, 25 January at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Sundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy Moyaha comes up in a second. In fact, let me remind you, Temba Bavuma is my fireside chat guest. We'll continue for another 15 minutes after we have this 5-minute chat, so all more or less, I think, with Jimmy Moyaha, host the SAFM Market Update. No update 6 to 7, Jimmy, but what you certainly know about the markets.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, markets are certainly closing out the week in a good space, especially on the local front. Asian markets were largely in the green with the exception of the Nikkei. That was down about 7 basis points, so kind of flat there, not really a surprise for us. But Hong Kong was up 1.7%, Shanghai 0.7% in the green. European markets were not as positive. The CAC 40 in France was up 0.45%. The FTSE was down 0.6%, and the DAX kind of finished flat. The U.S. markets are flat at the moment, but of course they still have the evening to trade into. Our own local equity markets finished in the green. Financials tried to be a bit of a drag. They were down about 0.2%, but industrials were up a similar margin, 0.6%, and resources up 1.7%. They were at some stage up more than 2%. The last kind of 2 or 3 hours of the trading afternoon didn't go so well for SA markets, but despite that, the all share was up 0.4%, the top 40 was up 0.4%, and we closed out the week in that space. When we look at the currency movements, the rand gains back some of its lost ground against the dollar. It's at 18 rand and 38 cents against the US dollar at the moment. 22 rand 91 is what 1 British pound will cost you. 1 euro will cost you around 19 rand and 31 cents. 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand and 60 cents. Surprising moves came from the commodities side of things, with palladium and platinum marching on. Platinum closer to $1,000 an ounce, haven't hit there yet, $976 at the moment. Palladium at $1,028. Brent crude coming back, still below the $80 a barrel level, but now $78.59 a barrel, so we're itching closer to that $75 level that I hope we will get to soon. The gold price is moving on as well, up 1.1% at $2,785 a fine ounce at the moment. If we look at the crypto markets before we go, the price of Bitcoin at around $106,000 a coin, or around 1.9 million with the current exchange rate. The price of Ethereum also gaining a bit of ground today, just at $3,400 a coin there. So looks like we are in a better space going into next week. Hopefully we can continue the momentum. It is the last trading week of the month of January. We can hopefully finish out the month of January in very strong territory. Typically, if we do see that happen, we anticipate that February and March are our continuation months, at least in the case of the local markets. But the big factor that's now back in play is the Trump factor. He did speak yesterday evening around 7 p.m., just giving an indication that, again, driving the same narrative home, that America is going to be put ahead of everything else, and he's going to make sure that that happens. So from that perspective, we anticipate that's going to create a lot more volatility. We'll continue to see how that volatility affects markets. Hopefully we can make the most of it, but we take the win for the week that was this week, and hopefully we can come back and close out the month of January in strong territory. Back to you, Asha.
Okay, and you have a great weekend. What's your plan, very quickly?
We're traveling for next week, so doing a bit of travel, trying to at least get some business done. Markets are global, so might be doing the show from a slightly different location next week.
Okay, we'll find out what it is when you tell us next week. Jimmy, thanks for that. We have a great weekend, right? Okay, but Themba Bavuma is with us, and we continue chatting up to 6 o'clock.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, maybe if you wish to call, we have time for, couple is always just very quickly, short, sharp ones. 086 000 2032. Do you want to say hi to Themba Bavuma? Great if you know him, but if you don't, if you just admire him, that's fine too. WhatsApp, you can send us a voice note, 0614 104 107. Just try and do that all before we end the show at 6 o'clock, right? So you could say we almost had like a tea break or a drinks break, Themba, where you understand all of that in your cricket language, right?
Yeah. You need those. Those are important.
Absolutely. Right, let's move on to other things. I mean, who's your best friend in cricket?
Best friend in cricket, I'll probably say Kagiso Rabada.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. So the batsman and the bowler are chummies. And I suppose you both sort of got into the team and graduated up the ranks almost at similar times, am I right?
Yeah, for the national team, that is. He joined the Lions. I was already there at the Lions, but for the national team, I joined 2014. He came around 2015.
Okay, well, that's interesting indeed, right? What about, I was asked by our technical team, it's like, please find out from this one here, like, who's the one bowler that Themba Bavuma just dreads facing? You want to tell me?
The one bowler. I mean, I can speak about it now. I don't think he's still playing.
Is he retired? Okay, good. Yeah.
Shannon Gabriel. He gave me a bit of nightmares. I made my debut against West Indies here in South Africa, and yeah, he gave me a bit of a tough time during those starting days.
No mercy, even though you supported the West Indies growing up as a lighter. You see, this is what happens in professional cricket anyway, right? In fact, Tumi's gone away. Tumi anchors the sport on the show, and she was like saying, find out from Temba that he's the Test captain, he's the one-day captain, but in this current SA20 league that's taking place here, which I know is a combination between like the IPL of South Africa in many ways, right? That you're not picked in the teams, you're not picked in any teams, right? How do you feel about it?
Look, I don't feel some type of way about it. I guess people would expect. I mean, I got asked the question: Do I watch with a heavy heart? Definitely nothing like that. I'll always support the teammates, and it's always nice to see the young guys coming through. I haven't watched any of the cricket so far. I've really enjoyed my holiday. But I mean, I don't, and I think it also probably was a bit of a blessing in disguise for me that I've had this 3-4 weeks off after the last test. I've obviously been battling with my elbow, so to have time really to rest it and do proper rehab and get it, I guess, as strong as it can for the Champions Trophy. I think that's worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I mean, you've played one day T20 cricket, but that's not your forte, right? I mean, I understand that. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's your opinion. I don't necessarily share the same opinion. I mean, as a player, you back yourself to play in all the formats. I mean, that's. I guess we're all entitled to our opinions, right? I guess I have to respect that.
Which one would you prefer? I mean, in the three formats. Obviously, the test allows you to make big hundreds, although you've got, I think, 500s in the one-day game and about 4 in the test matches or so. But and of course, T20, if you get 100, that's like a miracle. We know that. If you get 30, that's fantastic, right? I think you average 20, which is maybe normal for that type of game. But which format do you actually most enjoy playing?
I think all of us will probably tell you Test cricket. That's where you really get to test yourself as a player. And I think as a purist of the game, that's the one that you enjoy. You enjoy that battle between skill on skill. T20 cricket has its place. It's fun, it's attractive, and that's where guys go out and really just express themselves. But look, if I had to choose one, it would definitely be Test cricket.
Okay, interesting. I said on air the other day that the way the move towards T20 cricket or 20 over cricket, so the game's over in like 3 hours, right, doesn't threaten Test cricket because they're completely different formats, but it does threaten one-day cricket because sometimes now I find, besides like with the World Cup, I find the 50 over game is like it's too long. But Test cricket's different because I understand it's like playing chess. That's different. So do you see the same that one-day cricket may drop off at some stage? 50 over cricket.
Look, I mean, you'll always have the 50 over World Cup. I think that's always the coveted one. We grew up watching 50 over cricket, so I think as long as that is still there, I think the drive behind 50 over cricket will be there. I think, yes, like you say, to make space for T20 cricket, probably less 50 over. Cricket will be played bilaterally between countries. I mean, like you say, T20 cricket is short. It's attractive. It's a money maker. So, a lot of the countries are kind of leaning towards that. I think also from a player point of view, you see the young guys. The young guys are attracted and leaning towards Test cricket. Which I think can have a bit of a downside to it. You still want guys who are committed and who are passionate to wanting to be playing Test cricket, because really that's where you make your name for yourself as a player, but also you keep the country's name at the top.
Yeah. Do we all have like great stories from our careers. Like, do you have a cricket story that you repeat often? An after dinner cricket story that you'd like to share?
And after
the type of the thing that people just love hearing is like, and you can repeat it over and over again. It's about you and your colleagues in the game of cricket that you'd like to share.
Not from my side really. I think I'd have to think a little bit.
Is there a story, the best story you've heard, like others talking about it? No?
I'd have to think a little bit harder, yeah.
If you remember, let me know, yeah. I'll tell you what, let's do this. There's some voice notes, so people commenting, let's take those in a moment.
Outsurance has another random fact for you. In 1999, cooking oil cost about 4 Rand. Now it's about 37 Rand. Times have changed, but Outsurance could help you make ends meet with great car insurance savings. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754 to switch and save today. Let's hear how Lebo feels about saving 790 Rand a month on her 2023 Audi Q5.
I am very, very happy. I'm super happy. I can say go to Outsurance for you to be able to save more.
Heard about the Out bonus? After 3 consecutive years of not claiming, you'll get 10% of your paid premiums back in cash.
Outsurance looks for a reason to pay, not for a reason not to pay.
Why would you want to be with anyone else? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Queens of South Africa's beautiful game are taking a break from their pitch duties to dress up and walk on the purple carpet. It's a special evening to celebrate players, coaches, administrators, and officials for their incredible devotion to the game. This is the Hollywoodbet Super League Awards 2024. From grassroots to glory. Witness the Hollywoodbet Super League Awards on Sunday, 26 January at 7:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 Rand, 5 Dawa on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals. Star white, Baba. And he owns 10 identical pairs. And before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance, let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Spillion's life and how it can change ours as well in just one day.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, Themba Bavuma with me. We continue chatting up to 6 o'clock as part of the Friday Fireside Chat. Let's do this. There's you listening in and people who want to comment. Here we are.
Good evening, Ashraf and Themba. This is Sakilin Tsugul from Gwamhlabyalingan. Themba, I would like to know which games you consider the highlights and lowlights of your career so far and why those games. Thank you.
Ashraf, this is Kalu here from Heathrow, and say hi to Themba there from me. Man, Themba is a specialist batter, we know that, and he doesn't have a test weekend. Now, Proteas are playing in Australia, and I can't remember where it was, may have been Perth, and they're struggling to get wickets. And Faf throws a ball to Themba and said, give us one over. So I don't know how many overs he was supposed to bowl. He bowled this medium pace, but he bowled such an accurate ball, and he gets a wicket. Guess what? He overstepped, and it's a no ball. And I guess that would have been the only test wicket that Themba has. Just ask him about that if he remembers that. What does he think about bowling?
Brother Themba, I want to ask you, what book are you reading, or what books are you reading at the present moment?
Okay, there we are. Some interesting things. Let's take the last one, Themba. What books are you reading?
I've got it's a bit of a weird book, The Art of Creativity. The author is, I think it's Ruben something,
Yeah.
and it really just speaks to more about creativity, imagination, just a different way of thinking, really. And then the second question, I mean...
I hope it's not Ruben Amorim, because he is the coach of Man United. They're not creating anything at the moment.
No,
Yeah.
I'm a Liverpool supporter.
Well, there you are. Okay, you'll be happy that he's not creating much. Yeah. Listen, then the other part, I mean, that story, I mean, I asked you about a great cricket story. So this caller who spoke about this great cricket story from Australia where you took a wicket off a no ball, oh my goodness, man. That's true, eh?
That's what I was about to say. I think from a cricket story, the one the guys like to rip me off on is exactly that one where I could have been one of the few guys to take a wicket on his first ball. So
Was it your first ball in Test cricket? Yeah, as a
It
bowler.
was my
Yeah.
first ball. It was my first ball in Test cricket. Yeah. To clarify the story, I did go on to take a wicket though in that game.
Oh, did you? Okay, fine. But you don't bowl enough. I mean, obviously you tried to break partnerships. I'm sure that's what happened at that time, right?
Yeah. My job. If we're bowling, then we're probably in trouble. Eh?
Yeah, and I mean, and then Sakile spoke earlier. I don't know if you could pick up what he said.
Could you please remind me?
Okay, let me just try and get that back just now, if I can, and see what Sakile actually mentioned that he said. But let's then talk about other things. So we spoke about books, right? Is there is there a person, maybe in this case it's a cricketer, right? That an up and coming that you'd like to give a shout out to, someone who's like you really impresses you, but not playing for the national team right now, someone else. I know you have a matriculant in the national team, but just ignore that person. Someone that we don't really know.
There's young Richard Seletani. He just matriculated last year from St. Stithians. He's also joined us at the Lions. He's a batsman. He's a batsman as well. Quite similar to myself. So yeah, I think he's someone to look out for. Dynamic player. Has the ability to score big scores. So, yeah, I'm very excited to be sharing a dressing room with him there at the Lions, but also seeing how he grows and makes it to the top.
And is there a person that you would like to share a seat at the table with, like someone that you admire, not just in cricket, it could be anybody, it could be the president of the country, I don't know, right? Maybe Donald Trump, I don't know, right? Somebody that you would love to spend some time with.
It'd have to be Tiger Woods. He's probably my biggest idol outside of the cricketing space. I guess just to understand the man a lot better, how he was able to master his craft. And how he's been able to handle everything. Yeah.
What do cricketers do when they're sitting? When they're not batting, when their team's batting, but they're not batting. I mean, there's at least 9 players are sitting, and sometimes you can be sitting the whole day. Like, oh my goodness, it doesn't happen in rugby and football and that. What do cricketers talk about?
The guys talk about everything. To be honest, not all that talk is productive.
Yeah.
And I think guys, there's certain guys who kind of want to just sit in their own spaces just to clear their minds, and then there's other guys who like that interaction just to, I guess, clear their nerves. There's other guys who like to sleep. I'm in the change room. I'm one of those guys.
Do you?
Yeah.
Right? Wow. Yeah, I suppose there's a difference between a player who's going to bat and a player who's already lost his wicket, right? The whole attitude's very different then, the mental attitude, yeah.
Yeah, it can be different, but I think there's still an element of obviously respecting the space, respecting the guys who are still needing to bat. You try to serve the guys as much as you can. I mean, if you're sitting next to someone who likes to have a chat, then you want to be that person to chat. If someone wants to want their own peace of mind, then you respect that.
Yeah. Just we've got a minute to go. Oh my goodness. What for you is like, what do you see as your purpose in life? I mean, it seems obvious for many, like you play cricket, but maybe it's a bigger thing than that. What is your purpose?
Purpose in life, I think for me, is just to, whatever I do, to do it to my best of ability, but also to assist other people as well, to I guess, to become their best.
Yeah, and of course, I think you do great work with the Themba Bavuma Foundation as well, that perhaps we need to amplify too, so that's fantastic. Let's end with this then, right? I mean, we live and we die, right? But and people get remembered and people get forgotten. How would you like to be remembered?
How would I like? I'd like to be remembered as someone who was selfless, I guess. Someone who put other people's interests ahead of their own for the betterment of everything around him. I'd like to be remembered as someone who never feared much, but someone also who wasn't scared to fail and get up after that has happened.
Oh, beautiful. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been great talking to you, and I'm going to tell you how I would like to remember you, okay? I would like to remember you one day where I can say, I spoke to the captain of South Africa's World Test Championship winning team, Themba Bavuma. That's how I'd like to remember you. And I'll leave you with that challenge for what happens at Lord's in a few months' time.
Thanks. That sounds good. Hopefully it comes to fruition.
I absolutely hope so too. There we are. Themba Bavuma, champion certainly and inspiring many people. Wonderful talking to you, and thanks for giving off time to be our fireside chat for today. We'll have another great guest next week Friday, but of course we get back to normal broadcasting on Monday with the National Pulse. Have a great weekend, Themba, and to all of you listening in as well, have a fabulous weekend. We'll do it again on Monday. It's now time for the news with Greg Gross.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, Mako member in Cape Town alleges a smear campaign and minister speaks on the Appropriation Act. Good evening.